Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, Certified Brewhead.
And I am Nathan from Nathan Does Beer.
And welcome to episode 191 of Beer Nuts, the podcast Adjunct series. Nathaniel.
First interview of 2025.
Yes, it would not be mine, but it would be yours.
Oh, yes. Sorry. My first interview of 2025. Then.
Well, but it's our first Canadian interview of 2025.
It is, yes.
Which is exciting. We're heading out to Toronto.
We are.
Obviously, the biggest city in the country. Impeccable craft beer scene. Very wide. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a flu. Very wide, very varied as far as the offerings in Toronto is kind of whatever you want. They got it. And this is a brewery that honestly I've heard a lot about over the years and haven't had the chance to visit. Every time I go to Toronto since I've been back in Hamilton, I don't know about you, but I'm always like going in with a purpose and getting out. The traffic is not hidden. Not hidden. But I got like a bunch of breweries on my on my list that I need to get to, and this is absolutely one of them. So I'm excited to hear about the story and to get into some beers and learn all about it.
Absolutely.
We're good to go. So folks, let me make sure get this smoothly. Here we go. This is I need to like get better at doing this. One of these days I will, Nathaniel. Folks, please welcome Sarabeth of Red Tape Brewery in the building.
Hey friends.
Welcome. So nice to see you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for hanging out, for taking the time. This is great. Like I was saying, we truly, honestly, I've heard a whole bunch about you guys, about everything that you're doing in at the brewery, and I'm excited to chat to you and to get the story, and obviously to get into some of these bad boys. I'm
excited to be here and have some beers with you. It's a Thursday night. Sean's putting the boys to bed, so here we go.
We're chilling. So tonight we're going to be crushing a crispy, which is very much in our wheelhouse, exactly what we love. Let's bring this bad boy up right now. Let's take a look here. Here we go. This is the Birdie Pilsner. Is this, I imagine that ABV is on the front. It is 5.3. That's that.
You've already got yours in a very nice glass there.
Looking perfect. Branded glassware. Nothing beats it. Sarabeth, tell us about this beer. Tell us about the name, the concept, the ingredients, the works.
So this was the first Pilsner that we did at Red Tape Brewery. Prior to this, we had only done ales. Okay. And I really love golf. And so I had said to Sean, when we do a lager, I want to call it Birdie, because what's better than a birdie on a golf course? I want it to be crisp, refreshing, crushable, to get you to that perfect number, whatever that happens to be. For me, it's 2.5 years on the golf course. That's like the perfect place where my swing is loose. I'm feeling good. After that, it all kind of goes downhill.
Excuse my extraordinary golf ignorance. What is a birdie? The one under par? Is that what that is?
Exactly, one under par.
Yes. What?
And we launched this in April.
Of 2024?
But no, it was ages ago. April, I want to say 2022 or 2021. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I can't even.
I think COVID really I was trying to remember something today and I had no idea. I had no concept of time. I think we've all lost it. It's fair enough. Don't feel bad. We're all there.
Yeah. So I was really happy with it. And it's one of our top selling beers. We always have it on tap. It's, a party pleaser. Great. We're located right next to a hockey rink, and so lots of hockey parents come in for beer, and they just want something easy drinking, crisp, refreshing, and this is it.
Absolutely, that is amazing. I'm excited to try it. Cheers, y'all.
Here we go. Cheers.
Nose is great.
Oh yeah, that is great.
Exactly
so
what I was
Pilsner,
expecting. Nice.
Saz hops, 5.3%. Not too high, not too sessionable.
I love it. 5.3%. Check. I can tell it's checked straight away. Very, very much on style. It's got that beautiful grassy bitterness immediately. It's like that full-bodied type of Pilsner at 5.3. So it's a touch over the 5 mark.
Yeah.
But it's perfect.
It's got a little body to it. It's not just disappearing.
It does.
Head was beautiful too.
And it's it did pour with a gorgeous head, and it's got that kind of Saz peppery spice to it as well.
Yeah.
And super, super nice and crisp. This is great.
Awesome.
Yes, it's brilliant. So do you how long do you lager this one for?
So this one, I want to say it's 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that like a and I'm always curious, I'm so sorry about the coffee. Is there I know every brewery has their own benchmark as far as like the time to lager. Is 2 weeks like you feel like it gets to where it needs to go, or is that like a restriction because you're like, hey man, we're gonna turn these fermenters over?
That's where it gets to where it needs to go.
Okay.
Sean has talked about, using different methods to speed it up a little bit, but we haven't quite got there. And we're just really happy with it. It's good.
That's awesome.
Oh, and back to why we launched it in April.
Yes.
We launched it in April to go along with the Masters tournament, which is like a really big golf tournament. And so for the launch, I filled the brewery with azaleas, which is like a very seasonal flower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like very famous at the Masters tournament. And if you look at the label, it's inspired by golf courses on PEI. So I grew up partially in New Brunswick, and I only started golfing when I was 30. And my dad lives in New Brunswick, and we did semi-private golf lessons together on PEI. So it was like super like father-daughter bonding time. We would do a half-day lesson with our great coach Trevor, and then like the afternoon we would play around, and that's just how we spent our days. And eventually we went down to Myrtle Beach, and we just I really enjoy golfing with my dad, and I enjoy golfing. So, just going back to where it started for me on PEI, I was like, this has got to be the label.
That's very cool. I like that. I like it's got a story.
It is a gorgeous label.
Yeah, it really is. Like it stands out like a ton. It's super, super pretty. Is that the artist that does it? Is this like, it's hard to almost tell. It almost looks like a photo that's been like, you get a photo and you make it look like it's a painting of sorts, like it kind of like blurs the colors a little bit, like the tops of the trees look like that, or is this like
our graphic designer Manar? He's created most of our labels.
Okay.
I always send like photos of inspiration to him. Like, I really love this golf course, but because we include the sailboat on all of our labels, I was like, we need to get a water shot in there, so let's like go from this angle. And so he creates it based on all of my ideas, where I'm like, I want this and I want this, and I want to create that experience where, as if you're standing, in this case, standing on a golf course on PEI, it's the end of the day and you're enjoying a beer, because if you don't get a birdie on the first 18, at least you can get one on the 19.
Okay. And that once again, excuse my, I saw that on the back of the can just then. The 19th hole is like, does that mean like the drink?
It's a clubhouse. Yeah.
The clubhouse. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm learning. I've only ever played once at a.
We should go this year. Sean just signed me up for ladies league, so I'm going to be golfing a lot this year.
Where do you go?
This year he signed me up with a ladies league with there's a really great women-owned, women-run group called Iron Lady, and so he signed me up with them, and they play at a lot of different courses throughout the city, and I'm playing at Flemington, which is in the city.
Like in the GTA, I guess. Flemington.
Yeah.
The name is really familiar. Interesting.
But there's one that I really like in like Caledon, I think. Okay. Is Caledon far from you?
An hour.
Yeah, an hour for me.
Flemington,
and Glen Eagle, I think it's called. I like playing out there too.
Glen Eagle. That's interesting. Yeah, that's not too far. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I know there's another one, Glen Eagle. There it is in Caledon. Yep. Mm-hmm. There's I know there's I think it's called Chidok here. I'm not sure if that's how you say it. In Hamilton, I've seen drive past. It's like off the highway. That's the only one I think I've seen around. I don't know if I always pay attention, but that's sick. Yeah, no, I've always wanted to like try it. It seems either like super frustrating or super fun. I think it depends how much you care.
I think it's both. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of frustration in your life that you can just take care of by swinging a stick and hopefully hitting that ball.
That's a good point. Doing hard things is good. Doing hard things is good for all of us, I think. That's awesome. I love it. This is fantastic, and this is like a really cool introduction to the brewery. So that is fantastic. So I'd love to get into the story. How did you personally get into beer, and how did that lead to the brewery creation?
So I lived in Ottawa for several years, And I like started discovering, craft beer after years of drinking whatever pitchers were available at the local pub after work. I was like, oh, there are some really interesting beers out here. And I had like a blog at one point where I would like blog about all these recipes that I was making. And I decided to like blog about the beers that I was drinking. And so then we discovered BAOS All Natural Brewing Company. And one of my
Nice.
friends was like, oh, I got tickets. Do you want to go to this thing that they have called BAOS Oktoberfest? And it was like, an hour and a half outside the city. So we went. It was great. And we had a lot of fun. A couple of years later, a bunch of us went again, and I had just bought my very first car, and so I was the DD, and so we drove out.
Oh no!
And I'm with like a bunch of my girlfriends, and the evening is wearing on. I said, "Who's that beard in the blue hat?" And my girlfriend turns around, she looks at him, and she says, "That's Bacon Leg." And so backing up to earlier in the day, Sean grew up with Steve O'Shane and a bunch of guys who worked at BAOS for ages. And he was volunteering, and he was filling up a dunk tank with like a bunch of old beer that they couldn't sell. And he was using a bucket of bacon grease to cut the foam. And so then one of the kegs that was like draining emptied, and the tube kind of went everywhere, and he's trying to get it under control. And the Good Samaritan went to move the bucket of warm bacon grease out of his way, which landed directly in his way, and he kicked it, and he got bacon grease all over his leg. And everyone who was watching was, "Aww." And so that's how Sean and I met. And I mean, I was 100% sober at this point. And so my girlfriend's like shimmied us up over to chat with him. And there was some sort of like pyramid cup happening. And so I was like, so what's going on here? And here we are 12 years later with a brewery and 2 kids.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Whoop, we've lost your audio, Craig.
Yeah.
I think I muted it before when I was coughing. My fault. That is a wicked story. I love it. That is hilarious. That is so good. I was saying Bacon Leg might be the episode name, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it might be. That's Bacon Leg.
Yeah.
Bacon
I added it to the
He's
list.
still in my phone is to Bacon Sean Holden, because we continued to like chat, and he was in like 3 fantasy football leagues that night. And I was just like, this boy is cute. And he kept on talking about football, and he was talking about DeBrickashaw, who was like a player. And so I called him the Bacon Sean, and here we are.
Fun story. That's amazing.
So you met your husband at BAOS Oktoberfest, known at the time as Bacon Leg, and 12 years later, the rest is history. That's great.
So I lived in Ottawa. He lived in Toronto, and so we kind of went back and forth. I would say our 5th date was a road trip through Vermont, and we decided it was November, so we checked out a bunch of breweries. And on our last brewery, of course, is when we learned about the Vermont Brewery Passport, where if you get a stamped at however many, you get like a t-shirt. So we learned about that on the last one. But all wasn't lost. That was when we discovered the Alchemist and Heady Topper, because we were driving around and someone said, oh, it's say Tuesday. They're actually open today, because at the time they were in their previous location.
Waterbury?
Yes, they were in Waterbury. So we went up, we got to buy some beer, and that was before, I don't know what it's like now, but there was a period where it was restricted. You could only buy 4 cans wherever you went.
You can get it. It's so easy now. Yeah, it's a different world, because it's a Vermont IPA, and they even distro now. I get it in Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
So it's so if you ever did need it, you just got to keep an eye on the stores when they post it. But there's some Buffalo and Rochester have distro. It's a different world. Yeah, it's crazy to think of back to then when like it was, you had to line up and like you were restricted. But I think it's because that old pub had a tiny system. Now the Stowe one, they're massive.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think like our entire like dating history, and even to when we got married, like we got married in 2016, and it was the same year that BAOS became available in the Maritimes. We got married in New Brunswick because my dad and my sister lived there. My sister has cerebral palsy and epilepsy, so she lives in a group home. She can't travel, and we were like, we have to get married in New Brunswick so she can come. And so we did, and that was when BAOS became available in New Brunswick. So we were like, we have to have BAOS at our wedding. And then we ended up going to Texas on our honeymoon, because we made some friends from Texas, and we wanted to go to Jester King Brewery in Dripping Springs. So like a lot of big events in our life have been beer centric.
That's very cool.
That's cool. I love that.
And that would have been. Oh, sorry, Nate, go on.
No, it's okay. So in those earlier days in Ottawa, when you were when you were on your blog writing about the beers that you were trying, who else in Ottawa were you trying at the time? Because the scene was much smaller here back then.
It was much smaller then, and I had been living on Metcalf Street for several years, and so really it was just kind of what was available on tap or what was available in the LCBO. There wasn't a lot downtown at the time unless you had the Clock Tower, and so I would go and get like a red ale at the Clock Tower. But then I moved to Hintonburg, and it was around the time that Beyond the Pale opened up their first location. You know, the tiny place right by the Parkdale Market.
Yep.
And I had a dog, and so my dog and I would go for walks, and we'd stop by because they were only open like Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday until they sold out because they would sell it so quickly in those days.
Very quickly.
So but I lived right there, so I was like, okay, I'll just pop in, on my walk to get a burger. And so I was talking to Shane and Rob and Shane's dad, and they just made really great beer, and they were great people. And the dog that I had at the time, every year we would do Movember. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it still goes on, but like fundraising for men's mental health. And I had signed up a bunch of my yoga friends one year, and we got like a whole kit, like a PR kit from them, which included a mustache-shaped cookie cutter. And I was really into making dog treats. And so I went to Beyond the Pale, and I got some spent grain, and I made dog treats. And then I wrapped them up and I sold them at Beyond the Pale, and all proceeds went to Movember. So that year, I think
fun.
We raised like $700. Like, this is super fun. It's like,
great.
It's just a great community. And shortly after I moved to Toronto.
Okay. So then that's awesome. So then you're sort of entrenched in beer. It's a part of your life. It's a part of your key moments in life with your husband as well, when his leg isn't covered in bacon grease. And then in Toronto, what's the how did that look for you guys? I imagine you continued exploring breweries, and around what time was that? Like what year-ish?
So I moved to Toronto in 2014, and Sean was still homebrewing. So Sean lived in a condo, and the condo had 2 bathrooms, and one bathroom was the fermenting bathroom. So he was brewing like 5-gallon batches in his kitchen, and then the shower stall had been taken over by carboys that were fermenting with whatever he happened to be making. And he started a brew club at his work at the time, and so then they would have like team meetings at his condo where they would be making these beers, and they would make beers for different events that were happening in his workplace, which was non-beer related. So like his boss ended up making him these business cards that said like brewmaster, and like it was part of the social committee. So lots of fun. And he had a kegerator in his living room, and his mom got him this kegerator, and it had like 2 taps. Wow. And actually this is a story of where the logo came from. So we got this kegerator for Christmas, and I said to my neighbor in Ottawa, Luke, who's a graphic designer. Now I think he's like some sort of big wig when it comes to like marketing, but I was like, hey, do you think that you could design a logo for me so that I could put it on a tap handle for Sean for his kegerator? And he's like, yeah, for sure. So he came up with the logo that we still have today. So it's as if the letters for red tape are written with red electrical tape, and then the scissors are cutting through the red tape, and the tips of the scissors look like devil's horns to represent the evilness of bureaucracy around craft beer in Ontario. And
well, isn't that accurate?
So he came up with his logo, and the name Red Tape. I need to back up even a little bit more now. Our friend Dan Grant, who owns Bossa Nova in the West End of Toronto, he was writing for a homebrew magazine, and so he was interviewing Sean one day when Sean was homebrewing. And so Dan said to me, well, what is your brewery called? And Sean happened to be holding a roll of red electrical tape in his hands, because that's what he would label everything with. He labels everything when, how much hops are going into this, the date that he did this, or pitch the yeast, et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, I don't know, red tape. And so that's where the name came from.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's genuinely funny.
So our friends have a lot to do.
Not that.
our friends had a lot to do with the name and the logo. And so Sean was homebrewing, and we were, drinking a lot of his homebrew beer when I first moved to Toronto. And Dan Grant is actually the one who said to me, because, moving to Toronto is a big step. And, I lived in Ottawa before. It's a small city. Come to Toronto, it's huge. And I was drinking beer with Dan one day. I was like, this is just so hard. The transition to the city is difficult. Like, it's just a change in lifestyle. And he was like, I find anyone who moves here, it takes them 1 to 2 years to adjust. And that was like the best advice that I got. And it's like, you just have to be patient, because it is really tough moving to a new city. But now I can't imagine leaving.
It is. I moved to Toronto. I've been lived there once from Australia for like a year, and then once again, and I was there 2 years before going to Montreal. And it's like the screw face capital for a reason. There's like it's just a little harder to meet people. I think it's a little different. Even I moved 14 years ago, and so it was a different time, 2010. So it was like, I feel you are right. Like, even if you're right downtown, it's like harder to meet people. I found that my job was my main. I worked at the Apple Store in the Eaton Center, and that was because I had like 200 and odd young people about my age or younger, whatever, employees. So I was able to make friends really quickly. Thankfully, if it wasn't for that, I would have struggled. I think a lot more. Just because it's like, because as you said, it's the biggest city, fourth biggest city in North America. I mean, that is small. It's not easy when there's everybody sort of, you're in an elevator in a condo that people don't even look at you or smile. It's probably a lot different to Ottawa. Even Montreal was kind of like that too, to be honest. I was trying to be all nice when I moved to Montreal. It's like, oh, it's a bit smaller, and same thing.
Well, I think it was like, I had to learn to integrate that resting bitch face, because I would be walking down the street and I would have these weirdos approach me, and, I would think that they were like asking for directions or something, but no, they just wanted to talk to me because I was a friendly face. I'm like, I shouldn't be talking to you right now. Bye.
Smart move. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, doesn't that suck though? If you think, Jules, you mentioned Vermont, and because when we were in Montreal for 10 years, so Vermont, we went there all the time, and it was so different. You go to Vermont, you're just walking down the street, and people just look at you in the eyes and smile for no reason. You're like, what do you want? What are you looking at me? And you have this reaction that's like, this is not human. This is not a normal reaction to have when another friendly human smiles at you. So I feel you. It's a very strange thing.
It is a strange thing.
Doesn't mean everyone's like that, of course. Obviously, you just
I think
gotta find
it's also like
people.
It's so different because it's so broken up by neighborhood. Like, you could just stay in your neighborhood forever and you have everything that you need, and you see your friend on the other side of the city once a year, and you're like, okay, that was a lot of effort. I'll see you next year.
Honestly, even coming in from Hamilton, it's about, on a good day, the best possible scenario, to go to the West End, say like Bellwoods area, Ossington, would be 55-ish minutes. My brother lives right near Godspeed. I'm like, dude, it's going to take me just as long, and that's no exaggeration, to get from that area to the East End across Toronto. I could go back to Hamilton. Then it's going to now take me 2 hours to get home. Like, it's, isn't that just, it's so crazy. It didn't used to be like that. That was the other weird thing. It wasn't always anyway. Maybe back when you lived, when I moved there too, it was big, but it wasn't like an hour across the city big.
I think the big thing for the East End is the closure of the Don Valley on-ramp, like at Lakeshore.
Yeah,
that was a big hit.
That's been years.
And it has been years. And the construction is still going. And I think that they just recently shut down one of the Don Valley Parkway lanes, like northbound lanes.
Oh, no.
I don't know. If we get into Toronto traffic, it's gonna be a long, hard climb out. So maybe we should move on to the next subject.
Yeah, it's too easy. It's such an easy one. On the note, since you're both like from Ottawa and then you live in Ottawa, in comparison, I know this is not even a beer question, but is that how was the vibe as far as the friendliness that we were just discussing? Whether, because I found Montreal to be a touch more friendlier than Toronto, but not leaps and bounds more. How's Ottawa in comparison to the others?
I think Ottawa is like a very loyal city, and it takes a long time because everything shuts down after 5 o'clock or something in the downtown core. Like, it's very quiet downtown. You mentioned like meeting friends because you worked at the Apple Store. I think that's key living in Ottawa. A lot of your friendships start from work or like getting involved in activities or like team sports and stuff, but like it takes a while to establish like friend groups. But once you have them in Ottawa, it's like very loyal, and they're like very supportive. And I think that my friends in Ottawa were what I missed the most when I moved to Toronto.
And that was the most difficult thing to replace, I guess. Not replace is probably the wrong word. Well, I mean, it kind of is maybe. Like, was it in Ottawa? If you're like doing like the best example is the elevator in a condo. Like, do people just look at their phone, or do they like, hey, how you doing? Like, what's the vibe in Ottawa compared to Toronto for that?
I'll jump in on that, like, because I've lived like both in an apartment in Centertown and and I now actually like I'm very close to Centertown, but I'm in the I'm in the neighborhood that's just south of it on the other side of the highway, and it would be the kind of thing that like you'd get a bit of a mix, like very often like people would just kind of like stare straight ahead and move along. Although a bit of a difference, the last apartment that we lived in Centertown, my wife and I were probably the youngest people in the building. So like, and there were a lot of retirees in the in the building. So and they would always chat us up when we were in the elevator. So cool. So that was a bit different there, maybe just a difference in demographic. But now, even though I'm and this is the thing, Ottawa being as small as it is, the downtown core is very, very small. And even though we're so close to it, it feels suburby, like kind of where we are. And that like even in my 10-minute walk from my house to bring my son to daycare, like seeing people on the street, like people will say will say hi to me, even even if there's someone that I don't know. If we're walking through the dog park, like people will wave or or say hi and smile. It's it's a bit of a different vibe, even just kind of crossing one intersection across the highway.
Interesting. That's cool to hear though. That like it's a different vibe. There's definitely not getting the waves in the street. Even here in Hamilton, which is obviously way smaller than all of them, you not get people are definitely nicer. I noticed, but they're not as like high in the street nice. Mm-hmm. It's not like Vermont or whatever, like smaller, cuter towns type of thing. Okay, interesting. I don't want to dwell on that too much. I'm just curious since we're on the topic. So then coming back to your around the 2014, you moved to Toronto, figuring things out. You got the advice to take a year or two to kind of get settled. How did it move from that in the direction of the brewery? Did you sort of get involved in beer things, like your husband was in the the homebrew club and all that type of stuff? Did you do not similar things, but like were you sort of frequenting breweries or meeting people in that world?
So Sean and I moved in together in 2015, and we're still in the same place, and we're right around the corner from Left Field. Okay. And before we moved to this neighborhood, we were like down at like Fort York before, Liberty Village kind of area, in like 2 different condos. And so we had ridden our bikes out to this area, and we checked out like the breweries. Like we were like, oh, let's go and see what's in this area, because we had friends in this area, but we didn't know it at all. And so we biked up the hill, which seemed so tough at the time because like there's just this big long hill on the east side of Toronto, and otherwise it's very flat and it's just like long and tedious. But we went to Left Field and we were like, oh, cool. So then when we were looking for a house, we were like, oh, Left Field's right here. So we ended up moving in, and we found this restaurant called The Wren, which is on the Danforth.
Yes.
And so the day after we moved in, we had no food in the house. We were like, what are we going to do? And we looked on Google and we were like, oh, The Wren is right here. Oh, they're open for brunch. So we went, and we sat down. The server said, coffee, water, Caesar. I was like, yes, please. Like
all
it was
three.
All three. We found our like local. It was amazing. And they always have a really great craft beer list. But when we moved into the house that we're in, Sean upgraded his homebrew system so he could do 10-gallon batches. And we have this like funny little, we call it the bubble room. And it's like this half floor hallway kind of thing that's concrete and it's cool. So like all of his beer stuff went into there, and it took over kind of part of the garage. And then we got married, and then I got pregnant, and I was working for the province on contract at the time. And then I gave birth, and I didn't have a job to go back to. And around the same time, the company Sean had been working for was acquired, and he had some options. So we had a few $1,000s. And so we started like house hunting, but everything that we were looking at that we were kind of interested in was going for, 400,000 over asking. And it was like 400,000 over asking for a fixer upper. Like
Crazy.
our dads would be like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
And we were like, why don't we invest this money into, our dinner table conversation, like our dream? We would always say, oh, if we were to open a brewery one day, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. And it's like, why don't we invest in that? Maybe one day we'll sell enough beer that we can buy a house we actually want. So we still rent. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what it turned into. And so we spent some time looking for a location, and the location that we're in now, it's about 3 kilometers from where we live. It's in the Upper Beach, and we looked at several locations, but this one made the most sense. It's easy to get to despite being in the neighborhood that it's in. You can get here by the GO train. We're a 5-minute walk from the Danforth GO station. We're a 10-minute walk from the Main Street subway station. The streetcar goes right in front. The bus goes right in front. There's parking, and there's lots. It's an up and coming neighborhood. And so that's how we ended up where we are.
That's awesome. And then, okay, that's super cool that you could have got a house, but then decided to do the business route. I think that's cool. Are you happy with that decision in hindsight?
There are a lot of factors that go into everything that has happened in the last 5 years. So we've had the space for 5 years now, and we signed the lease in November 2019.
Okay.
And so we had some permit delays, and then construction delays, and then COVID construction delays. So sometimes do I think that we should have said, hey, maybe you should reconsider this when the world shut down for 2 weeks? Yes. Can I imagine it any other way? Like, our kids have grown up here. I was 7 months pregnant when we signed the lease with our second son. And so he's known this place his entire life. And our kids are proud of it, which is really cool to see. They're like, oh, can we go to the brewery? Oh, it's happening at the brewery. Oh, you have to work? Oh, at the brewery? Oh, can we go and see my friends at the brewery? Because there are so many families in this area that are regulars, and they have kids who are the same age as our kids. And it's also really great because so many of these families have been coming here either since before they had kids or when they had 1 kid, and now they have 2 or 3. And it's really amazing to be part of this neighborhood and see people grow and families grow and be there when, they suffer a loss and they come in here to, just chill. They're like, we just lost this family member, this pet. And they're like, we just want to have a beer. And it's like, it's really great to be that space where they come.
I love that. So it's a real community hub, which is exactly what a brewery is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So from where you're obviously COVID baby, and we've had, we have a bunch of breweries we've had on the pod who are COVID babies, and you guys are the biggest troopers. You guys had to deal with unprecedented challenges in an already challenging industry. And it's I think it's a testament to the business that you built, that you're still around and still going, because a lot of them aren't, which is kind of wild. And I was talking to someone today, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of feel like through all the sort of like the closures and the different things, there's like it's still an air of optimism within beer, that there's still breweries that are doing phenomenal, whether it's like just the quality of liquid. People are like just trying to make the best product, or they're trying to make the best taproom experience, which sounds like that's what you guys are doing, both of those things. Like, I don't know, how do you feel about I know, so skipping forward a bit, and we'll come back, but like the overall feeling about beer, are you generally optimistic or otherwise?
I consider myself to be an eternal optimist, but that's definitely taken a lot of hits over the last few years, and I've had moments. I think my biggest moment was Sean's broken ankle in February 2022, where he couldn't drive for 3 months.
Oof.
And we had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old in tow, and we were still riding that wave of closures. Like, I think 2022 really did me in, and I lost a lot of steam around that time.
Okay.
And it took quite a while to find my footing, and I would say I'm still trying to find that footing and get back to it. But 2024 we were looking at second spaces.
Cool.
Which also made us rethink how we're going to approach our business, especially with the lay of the land. 2024, we looked at secondary locations. 2024, convenience stores and gas stations were able to sell beer and wine, and we're right next to one of each of those. But it's also like we need to remember kind of how we started out, and the only reason that we're here is because of the strong community that we're surrounded by, and people who believe in supporting small business and buying good beer. And how can we build upon that to be successful? Because we've been in business for 4 years now, and we're still in that super risky age. Like, we could just go, and
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. So the first thing off that was, if you were to do the second location, would you do it within Toronto, or would you look in a separate place?
Oh, 100%. I'm never leaving Toronto.
Okay. So would it be a different side of the city?
It would. So one location that we looked at we looked at 2 locations, both fell through for different reasons. One was in Scarborough and the other one was in North York.
Interesting. Okay. Tell me more about that, as far as like, because this is something I was talking to some people about the other day, because I guess the only brewery in Scarborough is Common Good, and the only brewery in North York that I can think of is the second Blood Brothers facility, which currently is just a facility. They don't have a tap room, from, if I understand correctly. Talk to me about that, because I think that's, I almost think that's the move, because my theory is it'll be more quickly become a neighborhood brewery when there is nothing else around, and there's nothing for the community to gravitate towards, particularly in areas like Scarborough that are ethnically diverse, more diverse than most other places. So then they're not people who live in those areas. And if you're not going to Toronto, or you're not already into beer, like, you and your husband are, or Nate and I are, they like, you're not going to seek it out unless it's maybe in the neighborhood and maybe your friend works there, or you keep driving past it. This place looks like pretty chill. There's all like different faces there. My community's there, and I don't know. I think that's like almost like the future of beer, is that neighborhood, but not just the city centers. Because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think that's fascinating that those were your 2 considerations.
So I think that our approach with Scarborough was completely out in left field. Yes. Not referencing our friends at left field who we know and love. But we put in a proposal for a long-term lease on 10 acres of Crown land. So it was a property in Rouge National Urban Park. It has 4 existing buildings, and we were looking at renovating it and turning the entire property into like a super cool experience space, where we had a brewery, but it was also going to be an event space and like outdoor event space. So it was going to be really cool.
Okay. 10 acres is pretty sick.
Yeah. So, looking at it, it was really close to the zoo. It was easily accessible from the 401, lots of opportunity for highway signage. People who just wanted to get out of the city for the day, they could like drive out there. There was ample parking. It was a huge project. We were disqualified on like something that I very strongly disagree with, that I won't get into. And I haven't heard back on my questions, just putting that out there. So that was the approach one. So we were going to be this like rustic wedding event like venue, but within the city, essentially, because it is within city limits.
Oh, I love that.
It would have been
cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So then the second space is at Downsview. So if you're not familiar, Downsview is the largest development in North America. North America. It's going to be, it's like a 30-year plan. I have no idea what's happening right now with, the economy and everything else that's having to do with development. But it was a cool space, and we reached out because we had previously done a bespoke beer for the engagement with the community. So we had some really great insight with the community, and we had brewed like an Italian Pilsner. Because what we understood from the whole community, you know, there's like a huge Italian neighborhood, and then there's a huge Jamaican Caribbean neighborhood. And there's nothing that they love more than sitting on their stoop in the summertime and catching up with their neighbors over cold beer. And what does that cold beer taste like? It's a cold, crisp Italian Pilsner. You can have a couple and you get some music going, you're catching up with your neighbors. It's great. And so we had met a bunch of community members, and there were some people who weren't beer drinkers, and they tried our beer and they were like, I would drink this, because they loved it. It didn't have that like bitter aftertaste of like a big yellow beer. So it was great. So we reached out, and we were looking at taking over a fire truck garage.
Sick.
And so it kind of went back and forth between 3 to 10 years in terms of the space. But again, there were just things beyond our control, and it just wasn't going to work out. So,
Okay.
but
So
it's a great neighborhood.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be the perfect spot to introduce a whole different community, because we have a nonprofit called Link Up, and it's about diversity in craft beer. As far as like, there's two sides to it. There's a social side, which is, isn't it weird if you go into a tap room and there's white dudes with beards, and when you go to the street and it's everybody? And then the second side is strictly economic. Like, even if people don't buy into the social side, because some people don't really get that, the economic side is just more like, how many communities dollars are you missing out on? Like, I think the Chinese Canadians was like the annual what's the thing called when it's the amount of money a group of people spend?
The consumer price index.
Yeah, it might be that, or it's like the amount of money, you know, like the 8 trill pills from like Black Americans. It's $8 trillion per each year that the GDP is missing out on as far as dollars. So it's something like the Chinese Canadians alone, we had a figure. It was like in the like in insane billions, like Canadians in comparison even to America, when you look at us as like a tenth of their size. And it's like, it just seems so redundant to be like, look, man, like beer was created by women in Africa like 8,000 years ago. So it's literally for everybody, but people don't understand it. And it needs to be in the communities run by, you know, people in the community working there and like understanding it. And it needs to be relatable. And I think that's like super cool to even was that a part of that for you guys as far as those two locations, or was that kind of like a cherry on top?
So there's just so many elements that went into it. Like, I think we have a 69-page proposal for the Scarborough space. But the diversity of that of Downsview was really important to us. And you know, you mentioned in the brewery, it's a bunch of white guys with beards, and you go outside and it's everybody. Like, we've had moments where there are no white guys and beards in the tap room. And I'm like,
wow, that's amazing.
Like, this is amazing. And it's like, it's just so great that people know that we're Indigenous owned and they want to support Indigenous owned business. And, you know, like, it's really cool.
That is really cool
to put that out there and like have people come in and like they believe in us and our product, and it's cool.
Right. It's a completely,
love to hear that.
Yeah, that's that community hub side, and it's almost like it's like you've sort of like been able to jump over that little hurdle of that. What do you attribute to that? Do you think it's the Indigenous owned thing? Because I know that I was well aware of that, and I don't know how much you hung your hat on that as opposed to that just being a part of the tapestry of red tape.
I think I didn't want to put it front and center. I wanted our beer to be front and center when we started, and it was only as we grew and realizing how much, you know, people wanted that in the industry and they wanted the diversity. And I mean, I married a white guy with a beard. Like, I have no problems. It's like, you know, we love beer. I love a white guy with a beard. We love beer. And it's just like, I just think that diversity is creating a space where everyone feels comfortable. And we put that emphasis on there. We put it in our naming. A lot of our beers, like our Cunningham IPA, it's cool to see people come in and they'll say it. And they'll be confident in how they say it, and then they'll be like, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. I'm like, it's great. It's like you're making that effort. Like, and we have Kaniok, we have Iqaluk, and then we had Pauna, which is a flower that comes from Nunavut that people have heard about. And they're like, the thing about craft beer is that there's always new and interesting things. And if it's fresh and delicious, like, you want to try it, right? You're like, oh, like, I love that yeast. I don't see enough of that yeast. I want to try it again. And so I think that that's the thing with Fauna, and it's something that's truly unique because we have to go to Nunavut, or my cousins have to pick it and send it down to me. And it's like very limited, and it's done so sustainably, which I think is something that's very important to a lot of beer drinkers as well. So I guess back to like the diversity piece, is like, I didn't want to come out the door running with that, but getting to know people very quickly and people really proud of what we were doing is like, I can't say no. Like, you're proud of me, I'm proud of what I'm doing. Okay, let's do this. And thank you, because that's really been helpful. And I think that's part of why we survived. It's like lots of different people putting the word out that we are Indigenous owned and we're doing these things where we are.
That's dope. That's very cool. Is it like, what impact did that side of things have on just on the brewery in general? Like, obviously you've mentioned like 3 different beer names there that were all obviously inspired by Indigenous culture. What other parts of the brewery was that impacted? That it was impacted by, like, your background, like as far as like the things that, like you said, you didn't like run with it, but people knew. Obviously, you come in, you see a beer, they're like, oh, I know that word. Let me try to say it. That's super cool. I like that a lot. Yeah. What other things were sort of like like had been impacted by the culture? And I mean that in the most positive way. Like, had sort of been painted by that?
I think it's kind of in the way that we brew. So,
Okay.
Thinking about sustainability. So in Inuit Qayimaya Toklingit, you need to respect the land and everything that the land gives to you, because if you don't respect it, the land won't give that to you. If that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So when you're hunting, for example, you need to respect the animal, and say thank you for giving you that nourishment, because without it, you wouldn't be able to continue on with life. But if you don't respect it, then that's not going to keep on coming back to you. So in terms of beer, there's a couple of beers that we call the shouldering process. So it's where we reuse the yeast and hops from IPAs and other brews. And so our Oslo's, excuse me, oh my gosh, there are the bubbles.
Don't worry. Part of the game.
Oslo's Ray of Sunshine, which is our IPA with Citra.
Okay.
We keep the yeast and hops from that in the fermenter. And then the first one that we did was Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. And so the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants is a pale ale. And so Sean puts the wort onto the yeast and hops from Oslo's Ray of Sunshine. So it's just a little bit brighter than, what it would be without that second press of hops. And so we're getting that second press, we're getting a different flavor, and it's creating something that's completely new. And Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, this was one of those like late night couch conversations after our kids had finally gone to sleep, 30 minutes before the little one was going to wake up in the middle of the night for a feeding or something. And we were talking about different names, and we were like, what was Standing on the Shoulders of Giants? Like, we acknowledge our ancestors, because without our ancestors, we wouldn't be here. We acknowledge all of the craft brewers who work to like have changes made in terms of regulations so that we could actually open. So we were the first brewery in Toronto to open under a bylaw that was passed by the Task Force, which was Councillor Mike Layton and a bunch of craft breweries who worked together to change the bylaw so that a craft brewery could open within a commercial residential space. So antiquated Toronto bylaws, you could only open up a brewery in an industrial space. So where Left Field is, for example, on Wagstaff, that's industrial zoned.
Yeah.
But they were part of the team that worked to change it, because there's less combustible risk if you're not milling grain, for example, if you're brewing less than a certain amount per year. I'm going to pause at 5013 just because my staff is counting out change, and I'm wondering if that's really echoing on the mic.
Yeah, I can. We can pause for a second if you like.
Okay.
Yeah. Alrighty, we're back.
So where Left Field is located is an industrial zone, and they were like, small craft breweries should be able to open in commercial residential spaces. So the bylaw was passed, and we were the first brewery to apply for a license with the City of Toronto under the new bylaw.
That's
in the space
amazing.
that we're in.
Okay.
And that was
And
so
so-
the 2019 or early, probably 2020 by the time you got that all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had to, it was 2019 because we had to consider it with all of the spaces that we were looking at, which was also very interesting because when the City of Toronto amalgamated, there were a bunch of areas that adopted the new like automatic kind of zoning thing. And then there are other neighborhoods that kept the old bylaws. So you actually have to go to City Hall or like another administrative building and ask to look at the binder to make sure that the zoning is correct because it's not available online.
Oh my god! I've
Isn't
heard
it
so many.
fascinating?
It's fascinating, and it's like kind of like, the frustrating doesn't cut it. The level of stuff I've been hearing a whole bunch of stuff recently about Hamilton and how it's like just wild, and I think it might even be worse than Toronto as far as that. So we've heard the horror stories from not only just like Ontario, Toronto, whatever, but like the States, Quebec. It's almost Australia. It's almost like the same nonsense wherever you go, just a different variety of the nonsense. And it's still, even to this day, like I understand the need for the regulation because it is alcohol production and stuff. But I mean, like a lot of these laws, from what I understand, are based from the Great Depression, Prohibition. That's what I'm looking for, which is 100 years ago. And these are the same laws. I know Quebec, the law was 1928. Which is insanity. Like it's not the same world that we're living in, and and the fact of like, I don't understand this sort of bias toward. I mean, this is sort of going into more like a different conversation too. I'm not trying to take it there too much, but just that frustration of just like, shouldn't the role of government to be like, oh, you want to take a risk and open a small business? Absolutely. Default answer, yes, and yes, or yes, but let's make sure it's all safe and make sure you're not doing anything crazy. You're not disrupting the neighborhood. You're not going to blow anything up and da-da-da. Cool. But it's just, I don't understand this sort of like bureaucratic nonsense, particularly because I know Nate and I obviously would have a soft spot for you and for your peers who are opening breweries because that's who we talk to. But goddamn, man, it's insane what you have to go through.
You don't understand all the red tape that needs to be cut. Like,
What's with all the red tape?
Sorry, I had to. It was right there. It was right there.
I wish I had a. Do I have one? I don't have one. Damn it. But even just the you're an idiot. I love that. That was great. Yeah. So I mean, being able to figure that out and having to like, it's just the way you described that. I think was more impactful. Going to a bureaucratic building and being like, hey, can I see the binder? It's 2025. Even if you did that in 2019, that's ridiculous. There are computers. There's been computers since the 80s. That's so backwards and so bonk. I've heard the stories I've heard out of Hamilton about just the way that like misinformation, in the sense of like incorrect information given to people like yourself who are trying to start things by bureaucrats, and then not taking ownership when they had to figure it out and be like, hey, I just found section B clause 13, this actually says that here, and they're like, okay, cool, here's your permit. They don't apologize, they don't say like sorry for my mess up. Like it's just hearing the stories kind of makes me feel sick. I don't like it. It's terrible. So congrats to you guys.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Sticking through it anyway. But so that was the 2019 that you were talking about, that you got that. So fortunately they were able to change that zoning in the neighborhood that you particularly picked up, because that area.
So it was actually like a Toronto bylaw. And so like any commercial residential space in Toronto can open a craft brewery with production less than, I can't remember what the hectoliters are.
Okay.
But as long as you're not producing like large amounts, it's fine.
Right.
Gotcha. That would probably, I can see why they would restrict that, because once you're sort of producing more, then there's probably more risk of operating in different hours that would disturb the neighborhood. And like you said, like I never thought of it, but the explosions, because I guess you've got gases and fires.
No, it's more like the milling because of the
The
because
dust.
grain.
Yeah.
Yeah, because grain is combustible.
Mhm.
And also like the process of milling it, like there's a high combustion risk. And also we're limited on like how much alcohol we can produce, which is like typical of a craft beer license. But like, you know, during the pandemic, a whole bunch of breweries pivoted and started distilling beer that they couldn't sell to turn into hand sanitizer.
I remember.
So we couldn't do that, for example. But if you were in an industrial zoned area, you could.
Oh, I see.
So those restrictions came with the residential commercial thing. Okay.
Right.
Interesting. I hadn't actually heard that there was like a cap. Do you know what the cap is as far as what you can produce?
No, I mean, I'm sure I have it in my notes somewhere, but
Off
5
the
years
top.
later, no.
Yeah, who we would even
Sorry.
remember that stuff. No, that's okay. So coming back to red tape, so when you guys decided to roll the dice on the dream, what were your intentions for the brewery? Like what were you trying to achieve by in the brewery? What was your sort of goal? Was it, you know, did you have a specific vibe in mind and something that you were like, we want to create a space that, you know, I imagine didn't exist elsewhere, so hence you wanted to create your own?
So with Sean being head of the homebrew club for his work, and you know he was homebrewing beer to celebrate different milestones with his job. Excuse me.
You're right.
We were like, one of his friends was like, you should do this for weddings. Like people would love to do this. You know, when you go to weddings and there's like a custom cocktail, or there's like a bride's cocktail and a groom's cocktail, and you can go and have that cocktail. It's like, why wouldn't you create something like this for weddings where people can design their own beers and have their very own beer at their wedding? And we were like, oh, that's really cool. So that's when we came up with the idea of bespoke beer. And so the idea was we would sit down with our clients, we would get to know them, get to know their taste in beer. Oh, we did it.
Oh, you're good. We do this at nighttime, and I know brewers haven't. People in breweries work and get up very early.
Yeah.
So do not. You're good. You're good.
So we were like, oh, that would be really cool. We can like create names and descriptions and serve it at weddings, and you know, it'd be really great. And so that was kind of what we felt would help us stand apart. We can sit down with these clients and brew beer just for them. So brew just for you is our tagline. And so that's kind of how we launched. And it was really good, like, you know, getting that very first inquiry in the deep, dark days of the pandemic. And, you know, our Zoom, all of our consultations had to be over Zoom. So we were delivering 6-packs of a variety of beers so that we could drink the beers with them and have conversations about them and design these beers. Like, it was just a wild time to be doing this.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting when we could finally have people in the tap room and taste beer with them, because it took us so long to get there. So in our first year, I think we did 30 custom beers.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So like, it was obviously a way that something that you guys had already planned pre-COVID, but like, was it a way to get you through COVID in the end? Like, was that kind of part of the plan to be like, well, you know what, we've got a brewery with a tap room, but we can't let people drink in here because of these forever changing laws every other week. Was that your way around that to sort of continue to sell beer in a different way?
So the way that we were able to sell beer was, I guess that kind of ties into it, because we were like, if people are getting these custom beers made, maybe they don't just want to have them available to consume at their wedding. Maybe they want to give them out as wedding favors, because looking at the average cost of like a wedding favor, like it's $5 to $10 now. Like, it's not a cheap endeavor to give out wedding favors.
Weddings are wild.
Yeah. So we were like, oh, like, what about a can of beer? Well, first it was a bottle of beer. And I was like, I don't know, like the state that I'm leaving weddings sometimes in, like I might drop that glass bottle of beer and it'll shatter. We should look into cans. So prior to the pandemic, you know, we ordered a canning line from Wild Goose, and I developed a really great relationship with our sales guy.
Okay.
He was great. And he like advised me, you know, cans are just kind of the way that the world's working. Canada is like 3 years behind the US. US is like using mostly cans, and especially 355. Like people really want 355 mil cans as opposed to 473s. And so we were like, okay, let's do it. And then maybe a month before COVID hit, he called me. He's like, hey, we just got this brand new machine. It's smaller. It's like, it goes faster. Do you want to get this one instead? And it's cheaper. And I was like, cool. And so we had to take delivery of this thing in like July 2020. And our space was still under construction. And so I was like, okay, let's just have it delivered to our house. Like, I guess we'll make room in our garage.
Oh my God.
And so we had this canning line sitting in our garage in like summer 2020. And like people were calling us up like, hey, we hear you have a canning line. Can we rent it or can we like use it? And we're like, we haven't even set this thing up yet. Like, we don't know what that would look like. So we didn't end up doing that. But then, we had it. And so once we were starting to produce, which was November 2020, November 2020, we were actually able to put our beer into cans. And so that's the only way that we were able to open. Like 100% of our product went out the door in cans for the first 8 months.
And was that still running it out of your garage?
Oh no, we never set it up in our garage. We set it up like in our brew house. So I'm
okay. That's probably better. That's probably better.
They say that you can. They say that you can fill like cans from a keg. I think it would just be tricky to get the levels balanced.
Need to be.
I'm sure it would. Yeah.
Yeah, the DO and stuff. Interesting. I wouldn't have even thought like. Because of how strict all the liquor laws are as far as like doing something like that, I imagine it would be kind of difficult to.
Yeah, you probably couldn't do it
to get that over the line.
No,
because you have to submit drawings and like your space has to be inspected. We just had the pallets in our garage. I have a really cute picture of our then 2-year-old like sitting on this pallet that I'm sure he'll love one day. I hope he loves one day.
Oh, I'm sure he will. That's a core childhood memory right there. Sit on a beer pallet. It's the opposite. I grew up, my parents owned a toy shop because my dad got laid off when I was like 7. He's like, hey, what should I do? I'm like, get a toy shop because that's what a 7-year-old would say. And he did.
Yep.
And then it's the other way around. I always look at the brewery kids. I'm like, you don't give a fuck right now because you're 4. But as soon as you're 19, my guy, you are going to be stoked. It's a total different vibe. I think that's it's a cool photo.
Yeah, like any of the times that I'm in a brewery, like hanging with the folks who have kids, there's a classic image of of a brewer or brewery employee's kid who's like 7 or 8 and just kind of got like sitting on a pallet with their feet up on one, their head resting on the other, and they're just like on their iPad. Yeah. And I'm like, this is nothing to you right now, but when you're 20, this will be a whole different thing.
You're gonna be everyone's best mate.
We have a lot of families who are regulars, and there's this one family. They have 2 little boys, and I came in one Friday night, and they were like, "Oh, it's like this kid's birthday." I was like, oh, thanks for coming in. And they were like, well, we asked him, like, what do you want to do for your birthday dinner? He's like, I want to get pizza and I want to go to Red Tape. And I'm like, he's 5. Like, thank you.
Oh, I love that.
That young man is ahead of his time.
He really is.
Imagine saying when you're 5 to your parents, I want to go to a brewery. I'm like, that's kind of awesome. Like,
but they'll have like date nights. Pizza. Like one of the parents will pick up one of the kids and they'll come here and like the kid will get an apple juice and the parents will get a beer. And it's just like they're chill one-on-one time. And it's a chill space where they can do that. It's not like there's all these overstimulating things like in other restaurants or restaurants. We don't even serve food. We allow people to bring in whatever food they want.
Right.
But it's just like they can have that time and just sit quietly together.
I love that. I see that a lot. Like
awesome.
I know, Nate, you take your son out to breweries and hang out and have the dad-son days. And that's so. We often go to breweries. I always see like at Barrelheart in Hamilton. I'll see like a dad and a daughter. I'm like, man, it's cute. I think it's super cool that people do that. It's very dope. So when you guys open, I know this is kind of almost like a weird thing now because of COVID, but. Say COVID aside, when you were able to have people, what was the what beers did you open with? Like, what was the sort of? I guess maybe I'm trying to get at like the styles that Red Tape does, the breadth of your offerings, what you started with, and how that changed now over time, and things like that.
So the very first beer that we did is called That Was Easy, and we still, it's part of our regular rotation. It's a pale ale. It's a North American pale ale. And Sean brewed it because Sean was still working full time at his like tech job at this time.
Okay.
And so he brewed this like easy to brew beer pale ale. And he was like, that was easy. And we like wrote out this description. It's like, this is beer that you want at the end of a hard day's work. And you're like, you just want to sit down, crack a beer, enjoy it. And you're like, that was easy.
That's awesome. That was easy.
So the first 4 beers that we did were that one, Oslo's Ray of Sunshine, because I happened to publish my first children's book in September 2020. And we got like a limited release on the image of the dog who appears in the book, who is Oslo. And so our first IPA was Oslo's Ray of Sunshine, which I've already mentioned.
That's awesome.
And we did Stout It Out, which is a dry Irish stout. Or was it Captain Bosey's Porter? Oh my gosh, it was a dark beer.
Okay.
And then we did Celebration Saison. So Celebration Saison was like the inspiration for the brewery, we say. Because after like all of the office beers that were done, when I was pregnant with Ray, who was our older son, Sean brewed this orange and ginger saison, and we bottled it in champagne bottles, and we corked it, and we put cages on it, and I made custom labels that said Baby Holden. And I put like instruction on it, open when notified, and said like, we want to celebrate with you, like you're not necessarily in the city. And so I was due with him on December 30th of 2017. And so for Christmas we sent out all these bottles. And so then, you know, it was like torture, I tell you, like being that pregnant over Christmas, every time you move, people are like, is she gonna pop? But he was 12 days late. He was conveniently born Thursday at 10:30 p.m. And so Sean sent out messages to all of our friends and family who he had like sent these bottles to and said, the baby's here. And so we got all these pictures back of people popping these bottles and enjoying this orange and ginger saison. And we of course had some at home. Our kids were born at home. And so we like got to have a glass and celebrate. And it was like a really nice way to do that. And so we were like, Celebration Saison has to be part of our regular lineup. So that was one of the first beers that we brewed. We had those
absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it, were a lot of the recipes based on the homebrew recipes that you guys were doing? Or was it sort of like some of them were, and then some of them were like, you know, new things that you'd sort of created in the pub itself?
So Celebration Saison, he had definitely made that one before. Sour Soda, because I really love sour beers. He had done that one before. Oslo's Ray of Sunshine. Yeah, so I would say like in the beginning, they were like adapted from his homebrew recipes. And then once we started going to bespoke beers, that's when we started coming up with more creative, I shouldn't say more creative, with different recipes, because they're all very creative.
Totally. Okay. So like looking at that, it's a fairly eclectic lineup, I guess. You've got some like IPA type of stuff, whether it's haze, whether it's West Coast. I'm looking at the website now. You know, the Citra IPA, Pale Ale, the Saison, the Kettle Sour, and even if you look at your draft list right now, there's a couple of other styles here. I saw a Belgian triple.
Oh yeah, our French Fog Belgian triple. This is like, we brewed this originally for Emily. She's one of our regulars. And her friend Nisa did it together for Emily's 40th birthday. And so they wanted something like a London Fog with like an Earl Grey tea. And originally they thought that they wanted like a bergamot forward Earl Grey tea. But when we do these bespoke meetings, well, like we can sometimes have 2 to 3 tastings because we want to get it right. And so for this one, we had a couple, and there was one where I had never had a London Fog before. And all of a sudden I find myself like going around and ordering London Fogs from different cafes so that I can get to know like what a good London Fog is. And so we're trying all these different ones. And then we narrowed down to like, okay, we need to try the Earl Grey teas on their own to figure out what works with the hops. Because even if you want a lot of bergamot, the bergamot isn't necessarily going to work very well with the hops that we're going to be using. And so we ended up going with a cream of Earl Grey tea, which was like fabulous. It was just like the smoothness works really well with the Belgian yeast because we knew that they wanted that Belgian yeast. So you got that creaminess that you get in like a London Fog. And then to brighten it up, like a la bergamot, we actually added orange peel. And so French Fog is like the kind of beer where people try it and they're like, I'm coming back for more.
Okay, definitely sounds very different to the typical Belgian triple, which can be a little intense for those who are particularly newer to beer.
It's very intense. I feel like
Yeah.
if you don't like a super intense, very unique beer, it isn't for you.
No, I definitely agree with that. I love that. That's awesome. So it's like a relatively eclectic pale. Let's say the word pale ale, the Kaylee pale ale here.
Kaylee Paley Ale. It's Kaylee Paley Ale.
Oh, I get it now. Okay,
that was like I'm going into like all these stories of these beers now. So
that's fun.
I love that there's a story with all of them. That's great.
Last year we had donated a bespoke beer experience as like a silent auction offer at Inspire Awards at Inspire. And what was it? Feast in the Forest. And a couple bought it and they decided to gift it to their soon-to-be daughter-in-law for her birthday. And so the whole family came in for the tasting, and Kaylee and I hit it off really well. She has like an Arctic connection, and so we like brewed this really delicious beer. And what sets it apart as a New England style IPA is it uses Sriracha Ace hops. Nice. So it's like briny, and she's a sailor. Like she's on saltwater all the time, and we're like, I feel like this is just going to add to the flavor profile to make it truly unique to you. And then they were like at a pub one night and they were just like laughing, and she sends me an email. She's like, can we call it Kaylee Paley Ale? I was like, that's perfect.
Nice.
And you know, there was a question like, do we call it Kaylee Paley IPA Ale? And I was like, no, Kaylee Paley Ale. Like we can put in the description that it's an IPA.
That's genuinely hilarious. It was like when you're looking at it, I was like, I wasn't sure exactly. I was like, I thought that was how I thought it was pronounced, but that's way funnier when you say it like that. I like that even more because it kind of comes back to what you said before about people trying to say, you know, giving it a shot. Some of the some of the other names of the beers that people are like, I don't know how to pronounce this, but they give it a crack. That's hilarious. That's awesome. So it seems like, tell me if I've got this correct, that some of the bespoke beers, you're like, oh, we're gonna keep this on. We're going to keep this and offer this as like a red tape, beer that we're going to sell to people post your bespokeness.
So we always tell our bespoke clients if they want us to rebrew it, then absolutely, we're going to rebrew it. We're actually rebrewing one this summer because the client is turning 50. But some of them are so popular and so many people come in and they're like, can you do that again? That they just become part of our regular lineup and we'll do like a different label for them.
So then... Do they go on tap? So if you're doing a bespoke beer, I would have understood that the bespoke beer was like, if Nate wanted a bespoke beer, you make it, you do a run, you get 1,000 cans or whatever it is, they get the cans and then they're off. They're not, are they available in the brewery too, even when you do it for someone who,
So our bespoke beers, we actually start off and like our base package includes 100 cans for people to take home. And then like we brew approximately 1,000 cans. Depending on what the beer is, what the yield is, etc. Based on 3.5 barrels.
Yeah.
So we let them know they have the option to buy up to a full batch. Anything that they don't purchase will be available in the tap room, either on tap or in cans.
That is sick. Honestly, that takes that, because I always thought the bespoke, this is what I heard about you a year or two ago. And I was like, I can't even remember how I saw it, but I was like, what a fantastic idea. I did this thing back home years ago. It was called, it took my dad as like a surprise back in the day. It's called You Brew It. And it would be, you turn up, this is back in Australia, and you go and be like, we drove him out to the other side of the city for his birthday. And we're like, all right, you pull up and they've got like a list of different beers. And it's like a homebrew place that brews the beer for you. So it's like an afternoon where you like, they got taps in the walls and you can drink. It's like clones of everything. Heineken, Corona, da-da-da. I'm like, Dad, what do you want? He's like, cool, sick. And then you brew the beer and you go and get the DME and all that stuff. And you like, they're all like liquid stuff and they brew it up. And then you come back 2 weeks later and you bottle it. And he even bought another fridge for it. He was stoked. So the bespoke beer spoke to me in that way, because that was a really cool moment with my dad that I thought was such a cool thing. So I was like, oh, you're giving people like, for like you said, for weddings is probably the best example, or milestone birthdays where you've got the opportunity. But if they don't need a full batch, because I was like, oh, that could probably add up a little bit depending on the volume, you're able to leverage it and make it like work for you in that you've got a fun new beer for your tap room, but also Like if they only need 100 cans out of 1,000, we're like, well, sweet, we got the rest for the taproom.
But if like if their friends try the beer and they're like, "What? Where can I get this?" Like after their wedding, we've seen people come in and
And be
buy
like-
a case of their friend's beer. Like this is so cool.
Well, that's amazing.
That is like, where'd you guys come up with that idea? I feel like that is like a genuinely like phenomenal business model for the bespoke side, because it hits all the markers. Because I just kind of assumed without looking into it that it was just you get the bespoke beer, it's
Like
for
one
you,
and done.
Yeah, one and done. But like now that you've got that, now you've got secondary sales, and then now you've got recurring beers, which is even cooler, and that makes the red tape taproom experience like incredibly unique.
It's very unique. It's like the challenge is that people try something and they want it again, and they're like, "When are you bringing that back?" It's like, well, I don't know. Like for Christmas last year, Christmas 2023, we brought back 8 of our greatest hits in terms of bespoke beers, like the ones that flew out the door the fastest. And so we did 8 of them, and then we put together like a 2-4, and you got 3 of each of the beers in that 2-4. So that was like a really interesting experience. And people were really excited to see them come back, and like people were really excited to see their beers celebrated again.
I was going to say,
what were the big hits that came back?
Good question.
Okay, French Fog, the Belgian triple.
Right.
Like the first time that we made that, like it just went out the door. And then when we made it the second time, again it flew out. And then the Doug Abides, which is a New England style IPA with rye. That is like a regular brew now. That was brewed for Doug's 60th birthday. And Doug is actually the husband of one of my golf buddies, and their son works for us.
Okay.
What else was there? Natty Nessa's IPA, I think, was in there. I don't know. This was like a year ago. I forget already.
I understand.
That's okay.
Do people kind of lose their minds seeing it back on tap again? Like they must. Like I can imagine. Like it's even cool for us after we've been doing this podcast for coming up on 10 years. So we've done a bunch of collabs. There's always like, this is so sick. These breweries that are our faves are doing collabs with us and got our logo and all that stuff on the can. But like people's names are like the Kaylee one is so funny. Like do people kind of like get super gassed that like, yo, like come and get the beer with my name on it at Red Tape? Like they must be like, stoked about that when it comes back even after the fact.
They find out, like I'll email them and say, hey, it's coming back, and they'll be like, yes. Or like even our regulars who have nothing to do with the people who are part of the bespoke beer, they get really excited. It's almost like they know them. And then we've had like one instance where there are 2 bespoke clients in the tap room at the same time, and they meet each other. Like, really? My beer was this one. They'll be like, my beer was this one.
That's awesome. It's like is that like a movie or something when people meet? Or I don't know why that feels familiar. Like it's like a movie when like people from
it feels like the plot of a rom-com.
Yeah, and they're like, oh hey, I
love a good rom-com,
right? Or like a really bad Christmas movie, which when I say bad, so bad is good Christmas movie.
It feels like the plot, like it could be the plot of a Hallmark movie.
I feel like we could pitch it. You could probably make it just as good as Netflix.
I mean, we have like a Hallmark like person in here regularly. So
do you really?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pitch, Sarah. I think that could be. I feel that could.
Like who can I talk to about this?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, if you pitch it and someone takes it on, you can guarantee there will be like 6 of them next November.
Yeah. Here's the formula for the craft beer rom-com.
Yes, exactly.
It could work. I feel like that could work. I feel like that's cute. That's so cool. It's just like that's a really unique business model. And I feel like coming back to sort of how we're sort of touching on briefly earlier, like on the difficulties of being in craft beer in this day and age, like having that level of separation as far as the uniqueness of the offerings and just the model. I'd never like seen anything like that or heard about anything.
I mean, you have to do something to set yourself apart. When we opened, there were over 400 craft breweries in Ontario. I haven't looked at the number recently, and I'm sure it's dwindled drastically.
I think it's about I think you're basically about right. Yep.
Yeah. But it's like a perfectly competitive market. And what do you have to do in a perfectly competitive market? You have to do something that like sets you apart from everyone else who's doing exactly the same thing. But people are going to be like, oh, I'm going to go to them instead of them, because it's like a very different experience than like white labeling beer.
Big time. And even there's nothing wrong with that, but I think this is even like a cooler way to do it, because it once again comes back to kind of almost what you were talking about in the beginning, as far as that the community side of things, and how doing this engages a community, because that's really what we're all trying to do, I guess, in any business, is engage a community. And craft beer probably does it some of the best, because they are like naturally community hubs, and you've been able to do that on a different level that's unique to anything either of us would have ever seen. And I imagine you've never seen anything like that either, as far as like
we were the first bespoke brewery in North America.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense. Is there been others since?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think they got inspiration from your model specifically, or is it just coincidence?
I think that there's been inspiration to create wedding beers from what we do. I don't think that anyone does it quite like we do, because we're such a mom and pop shop. Like, literally what you're paying for is you're paying for the experience of bringing you and like up to a group of 6 people into our tap room, and you're tasting. We tell you to leave your car keys at home, and because you're drinking beer with like me and Sean, and we're taking notes, and we're learning your story, and we're putting this together so that we can celebrate you, because essentially that's what it is. You know, when you're celebrating something, you're telling the story, you're sharing the story with those that you love, and they're part of it. And so on your wedding day, when you crack this bespoke beer that you've put what you love into it, and you're sharing it with those people that you love, that's what they're going to be talking about in 5 years and 10 years, when they're reminiscing about that day. Like, oh yeah, you know, people probably aren't going to remember what they wore. They're probably not going to remember what they eat unless it was phenomenal. You know, and everyone's going to have their own like take on it. But if they remember that story of that beer because they read the story of your relationship, if you got married, it's like, oh, our love is like, we found this love here and it grew through this, and we're sharing this because these flavors really inspire it. It's like, they're going to remember that. And so it's becoming part of that story. And like, you know, you're podcasters. And it's like, you know, that storytelling is needed, and people want to hear it, and they want to know kind of the people behind it, or the ingredients behind the beer and how it came to be. And that's what gets people excited and brings them back.
Well said. You're so right. The story is everything. And if you think about it, people go to a brewery, who do they want to meet? They want to meet the owner. They want to meet the brewer. That's who they want to see, because they're like, it's almost like you go to some of the things I felt like we have prided ourselves on in being in Hamilton. Even in Montreal, we did it too, but here we've done it way more. Like, I feel like we know the owners of every small business we freak in, and we make an aggressive part of our, not aggressive, but, you know, like a very strong part. Intentional. Very intentional. We go to, I know all the owners of all the cafes, they follow us back on social. They, oh, you guys were just in this city, and like, we go to our fish shop and our butcher and all the different places, and they all know us and we all know them. And like, that community and those stories of each one of them is what keeps us coming back. And that's why the products are so good. And that storytelling is everything. It doesn't really, there's no like way around it. It's kind of like the most important part. And that's why else would a craft beer podcast exist, because people want to know the stories of the people behind the beer. The beer itself, obviously, but the people are really what would make someone even want to listen to this type of stuff, because people do care. So it's you've definitely nailed it in that way, and being able to capture that storytelling thing. I think there's also something to be said about the husband and wife dynamic. I think there's like, when there's a partnership team or whatever, like just a couple, people love that. Like, when they see some of the, Nate and I were talking, I think like yesterday, there was 2 podcasts where the couple, where there's like a couple behind it, and I just feel like when we posted the response, we're like, oh my god, I love it. Like, there's something about that just maybe like, qualitatively over the years, we've seen that response. I'm like, there's something that there's like almost a community buy-in because you're a family that's bought in.
It seems
I
to
should
really
brought Sean then.
Yeah, next time.
we'll have to have you both on next time.
Yeah,
that's been a big thing, and we seem to have had quite a few of them in the last 6 months. There's been a few husband and wife teams that we've had on in the last 6 months, and the response when we post the pods that the fans of theirs and and of the brewery that it brings out is wild. Like a lot more, like significantly more than some of the other pods that we post. It's really cool to see.
It's cool.
But I feel like you generate that. It's fine. We'll get Sean next time. We'll get your side for now. It's totally fine. But I feel like we'll still see that because there's it's also the secret to that, I think, is the tie-in or the buy-in from the community. Tie-in to and the buy-in from the community that you serve. That it doesn't matter whether you're in Toronto or Prince Edward County or Barrie. It doesn't matter. It's still there's no matter the size of the place, there's still a community around. And kind of as you alluded to earlier, Toronto was a very neighborhood centric city, and that couldn't be more true. So where you guys are is that's the local, particularly beaches. It's a bit of a difficult place to sort of get to for the most part. From the rest of the city,
we're so easily accessible. We're 13 minutes from Union Station, which is very
straight from the thing.
History.
So maybe that's a misconception.
Taking the GO train.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize that. But the other piece of it is people who come from Durham County, people will take the GO train in from Bowmanville, or they live in the Kawarthas, and they drive and they take the train in, or they're coming in for the weekend. They're oh, we have to stop here. The number of people who are regulars who I see once a quarter, and I'm chatting with them and they're telling me their story, and it's the fact that they're driving into Toronto and they're coming for the weekend, but they make us their first stop. That's pretty meaningful to me. It's you enjoy our beer that much that you're making us your number one stop. That's great.
That's awesome. And then you just proved me wrong. I love that because in my head, people have told me, my brother lives in that general area, and I've had other people beaches is a bit of its own little world. But then you just showed multiple ways to get there very easily and very efficiently. So I like that. I didn't know enough about it. And that's probably maybe part of it. Maybe it's almost I guess, is it fair to say beaches is like up and coming as far as, I know there's a few breweries in the general area, but is
there's beaches, but we're upper beaches. So we're at the top of the hill. So beaches, it's only a 4-minute drive by car, but if you're walking, it's a significant walk up the hill. So it's upper beach because we're on top of the hill. So if you're taking public transit, you have to wait for the bus. It takes you probably 30-40 minutes to get downtown because you have to take the bus up, and depending on your timing of getting the GO train. But if you're GO train, this is your destination, it's super easy from downtown.
Gotcha. Understood. Okay. Either way though, the fact that you got people, like you said, coming out, coming from Durham, coming from up north, coming from different places that just make it. I think that's a real good thing about beer, is that people know that a lot, if not the majority of breweries are destination. Not all of them are just right downtown with walk by traffic. You've got to know about the place, and you've got to be very intentional about going. And I almost make it's then therefore the customer base, it's more meaningful because of that intention. They're not just oh, I'm looking for some place to just grab a bite or grab a drink or something. Oh, this is open, cool. They're no, I live up in the lakes, but I'm going to Toronto, goddammit, I'm going to Red Tape. That is I don't know, I feel like that's cooler with the as a brewery, just that the majority, is that fair, the majority of people are a destination, or is there some level of walk by traffic for where you guys are at?
We have a very strong community in this neighborhood. When we were looking at this area, we were looking at the demographics, and we realized that there's a lot of people who are at similar stages of life to us.
Okay. Young families
and young families. We installed a change table in our washroom. We actually put a washroom on our main level that's accessible.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
It was like non-negotiable for me that we had an accessible washroom because my sister's in a wheelchair. You know, my entire life was spent like seeing my mom struggle to like change her in public washrooms, which was a nightmare. And it's like having some sort of space. It's not universal, but it's
Okay.
accessible. We have the bars and everything. But we were like, we have the space. Let's put a change table. And so it's like more accessible. And we've seen different organizations bring their clients in wheelchairs to like come, and like that's
Because they
also
can.
really cool. Yeah.
That's great to see.
Accessibility is something that I feel like I don't even know if I've ever talked about it here, but I feel like it's a pretty key thing in a lot of places. I think sometimes
It's certainly
people
not talked about enough.
it's not talked about enough, and it's not like it's just more like a I don't know, making sure it comes back into that just like inclusivity as far as like I want everyone to enjoy the space, and sometimes people have strollers or sometimes people are in wheelchairs and they're gonna need a little ramp. And then you know what? They're gonna need to use the bathroom. So you're gonna have a little, a little something that's enough space on the ground floor for that. Like I think that's just like a real small it shouldn't be such a large thing that everyone should be like, oh wow, that's so cool. It should be like a given.
Yeah.
And the way you put it, like for those two demographics as far as parents and people in chairs, like it's a no-brainer. So it's is that some feedback that I mean, obviously it's clear it's important to you as both a parent and someone who has someone in a chair in the family, but is that like do
We have
people
like regulars, like we have parent groups that come in, and they appreciate that that's there, and they'll come in like at noon on a weekday, and noon tends to be a great time because it's in between nap schedules, and just having that space where they can go and change their baby, and then there's like all the spin-off groups from them. So it is really great.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Once again, I feel like the it's almost like this is what I like about these pods, because that's just a very arguably a small insight and very simple, but also very impactful, that maybe we have a decent like I was saying off air beforehand, like the industry following or audience that might be like, oh wow, I never thought about that. Like, man, we should probably
Yeah.
do that. Like
Like
as well.
if that makes even one other owner think like, oh, here's a small change that I can make,
Mhm.
that could make a big difference for the clientele.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like just a lot of thought to put into it. So, if you meet the requirements, it's like just making it a little bit more comfortable. Like, where are we going to put this change table? Who is going to clean this change table? Like, it may seem like it's a lot, but like getting it in there, I think it's a key difference. And then, when we first opened in terms of draft, like when we could have people coming in, it was like October 2021. Is that right? I don't know, years
That
ago.
sounds, man, honestly, like you said, it's a blur. It sounds about right when things
Like,
started.
what is time? What is time anymore?
What is time? And also things opened. I know in Quebec, I was in Quebec, and kind of everything kind of just stayed shut for the most part.
Yeah.
But I know in Ontario it was open, close, open, close, open, close type
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
So, like, when we first opened, there were a couple groups that booked right away. And we were like, oh my gosh, they wanted to have the space at the capacity that we were allowed to have. And we were like, perfect. And so we had a group of veterans, like young veterans, and then we had a group of moms. And like
Cute.
the sales of moms compared to the veterans was like insane.
Respect to the
It
moms.
was like,
Blew
as a
them
new
away.
business, you would have expected like the veterans to have higher sales, but absolutely not. Like, moms are where it's at. They're like, we're going to have a couple drinks, then we're going to take a 6-pack home to share with our partner because it's really good. And, they're like super excited to support local business. So,
Love that.
yeah.
Particularly at that
That's
time as
awesome.
well, where it was like, do you know what that was? And that comes back to the thing we just touched on before. Like, I reckon one of the coolest things, obviously the pandemic time was wild and crazy and vastly negative, but one of the cooler things was that focus on local. And I feel
Yeah.
like we already shop local because Montreal was more proud of, like, Quebec is a little bit more proud of the local stuff than say Ontario in my experience. So it was a little more, we were kind of doing it anyway. When I say kind of, like, we were always doing it anyway, but we didn't think of it like that. Whereas now I'm like, I feel like it's just almost ingrained it, where I was like, oh, I'm not going to shop at, not that I shop at Walmart, but like, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go to the guys up the street and get my stuff. I'm not gonna, like, if I can do, and I like that people would be like excited to, like you just said, like excited to support small business, because people, until everything's, it's almost like it's like you don't know what you got till it's gone, and like shut everybody down.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, this community is nothing without these businesses. Like, all communities are nothing without small businesses. They're the backbone of any society. As far
It's not fun to walk down the street anymore. You know, it's like there's something about walking down the street when there's a butcher and a barber and a baker and a brewery.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're not there and it's just a bunch of empty storefronts, like, yeah, that's sad. Like, what happened to them? It's like, well, no one was shopping there, so.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I guess that was still, I guess, even if I'm saying it was one positive thing, it didn't always make everybody last. And then you've got, I guess, there's other external factors like you talked about earlier, like rents and ingredient costs, or like just costs of the things that you're selling.
Cost of everything.
Up, and cost of everything has gone up. Electricity, like all energy costs have gone up, and So there's a million forces trying to mess with everybody, and then,
or even like the competitive aspects, right? Because like big businesses have big teams that can put a lot of effort, and they have a lot of resources around marketing, so people hear about them a lot. Where like a small business, we have limited resources. We can't be on top of every single change that's happening all the time and let everyone know in our market that that's available, because we're stretched to the limit. But for example, one thing that we recently changed is our loyalty program, because like for regulations previously, we implemented a points program, but people couldn't redeem the points towards beer. They could only redeem them towards merch. And we're like, wait, like regulations have been changed and now people can use their points towards beer. It's like, we need to advertise this. Because if you think about, you know, like one of our favorite big box stores, so I'm not even going to mention, but you get like 2% cash back. And so that's incentive to go and buy all of your beer there, because you're going to get 2% cash back. But if we're a local brewery and people don't even have to get into their cars to go and buy their beer, but they can still get that like cash back as a loyalty program and redeem their points towards beer, we need to let them know that they can do that, because that's incentive right in their own neighborhood.
Oh my God.
And that's something that's like exciting, but it's like, I'm our marketing department. Look at me. Like it's 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, and you know, I've been sick all week, and it's like, this is it. So how are we going to get that messaging out there? We're starting with the podcast.
And that's a beautiful thing. I'm glad you brought that up. And I guess there's that. And then there's, you know, I guess that one good thing about social is it's your own platform that you're able to push that out on. Obviously, there's algorithms pushing back on that, but at the very least, you've got that. You got your website, you got your email list. Literally, as I went to your website, I signed up for your email list right now, so you can go to. I love being on it. It's redtapebrewery.com, and you can sign up for the email list there. I think that's also email. I have a social media agency, so I'm quite passionate about all this stuff, marketing in general, but I think it's like email marketing is a phenomenal way to sort of get that message across. And I love seeing the different emails that the breweries send out and the way that they sort of communicate with customers as far as new products, events, food pop-ups, things like this with the point system, which is I love a good point system personally. Love a good point system. It's very who doesn't, right? You kind of like crazy not to, whether it's your gas station or it's like, you know, the cafe, local cafe, the little punch card, or like.
Does this go back to like our childhoods when you had to collect the UPC symbols and send them in with like a self-addressed stamped envelope to get your prize back?
Oh,
self-addressed stamped envelope is the one that hit me. We had that in
what
Australia.
What a throwback that is.
Wow. The kids could never these days. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they have no idea what we had to go through to do anything. So even that, they're like,
or like that's epic. Like my example is not. My example is not
episode name.
Yeah, my example is not as good at that. But I'm even thinking of like the sub shop, or like where you would have like a business card to, like type thing, and it's either like a little stamp on like the 8 squares or something like that, or a hole punch on it, like that kind of thing.
I went,
and then you got like a free snack. a free snack sandwich or like a free 6
Or
inch.
like like
Yeah.
after you've done after you've bought 8 subs, you get like a 6-inch for free or or something like that, and then you've got like that's just another card that you have in your wallet. Oh my god,
beefing it
Gen
up.
Z has no idea.
No idea. I went to a cafe here like last week, and they like, "Hey, do you have a punch card?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Do you want one?" I'm like, "Sure." And they gave me literal like boom, bought 2 coffees, boom, boom, and gave. I was like, wicked.
So like exactly
That's
what I
great.
just described.
Exactly what you described.
Yeah.
My other, the main cafe, which is also a bottle shop here that I get all the craft beer from, they got like a point system. So anytime you buy anything and you sign in with your phone number, I don't know what it's called, but whenever a cafe has that, I love it because it emails me the receipt because I use it for business, so I can claim it. So much easier than printing it. But they got the point system, so then you buy beer, you buy coffee, whatever, and it goes towards the points. And I think it's like 40 points per espresso drink. You're like, do I want to cash it in today? Yeah, fuck it, why not? Yeah, I know. It makes you feel like, oh, do I want to roll the dice? Do I feel like a little? I don't want to spend $11 today. Let's
Do I want to treat myself today?
Do I treat myself, or do I let these rack up? You got a Canadian. I know Canadian Tire does that too, but like, yeah, it's not as fun because it's not local, and there's something about it's gamifying, isn't it? It's really gamifying the consumer.
Is that how
experience.
your point system works?
So our point system, you get like points for every purchase, but it doesn't give you the option right there to redeem. You have to like get a code, or like you talk to us and you're like, oh, I want a code, and you can only like redeem for like $5 or $10 or something.
Right. That makes
so
sense.
it's off your bill. So maybe your bill might be $20, but you can redeem 5 off it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
I think that's still like it's just the fact that you have it. I can't even think of another, at least a brewery that I've ever seen a point system.
No, neither can I.
Not even in the States.
Left Field has it.
Oh, do they?
Okay.
Oh, that's
Been down
great.
for a bit. Okay. That's awesome. I know it's all to see this, but this is what it is. This is marketing, right? You were saying you're the one person marketing team, and this is marketing in 2025. I think that's exactly.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, Craig, you're like, give me a little bit of pressure. Like, I need to up my email game and make it a little bit more exciting and consistent.
I would say, don't worry about exciting, just consistent. If there's something new, do you know what it is? Because this is what we have a YouTube channel for our social media agency and stuff. So we do videos about this crap all the time. So it's like in my head. But basically, if you think about it, what if Instagram, do you remember, actually, Nate, you know, but Sarabeth, did you see maybe 3 months ago, they were banning and suspending Instagram accounts left, right, and center for breweries?
Yes.
Badlands, Muddy York, Barrel Heart, Beyond the Pale. They
Beyond
all
the Pale, yep.
So there was like 8 of them that got done. They all got them back, but it was some AI content review nonsense that just went awry. If you think about that, and you lose your Instagram account, which is arguably the most important for most people, particularly in Ontario, I would argue that Instagram is the most important. In Quebec,
I would say so.
In Quebec, it's mostly Facebook. Funnily enough, it's very cute that they love Facebook there. But if they take that away, then what? Then are you fucked? Like, what are you going to do? Nobody can take your email list away from you. Like, maybe if Gmail goes down, then we're in a bit of strife. But like, typically speaking, if you got your email list, you got a direct line to your customer right there. And I think that the ones that I see that are the best, that are kind of like, I don't mind a weekly email. Like, I proactively sign up to them because I just want to see what's up. As you know, what Nate and I do here, aside from the social media stuff, but just in the beer, well, I want to see what's going on. I follow everybody on social, but I know the algorithm's not going to show me all your posts, but I'm going to see every one of your emails every time. Yeah. And I want to see, I'd like to see how people do it, you know, whether it's new beer releases, events, maybe an update to that point system. Hey guys, you can now cash in on points on beer instead of just merch. Hey, we've got these new hats we just dropped. You know, hey, anyone looking for, or just like, even if it's set like, hey, looking for a bespoke, is coming up to wedding season in the next 6 months. Is anyone looking for bespoke beer? Send this to a friend. Like, stuff like that, I just think is like invaluable for a business.
I feel like you just drafted my next 3 emails.
I hope that is helpful. There's so much you can do with it. And I don't know. I feel like email marketing is pretty exciting as far as for your particular business. Like, say, BAOS, we have one. I didn't use it for a while, and I started just doing just monthly ones and just summarizing, hey guys, here's the pods that came out, these are the exciting ones, and if there's anything we're doing a collab or there's happening, and we're just a podcast. I just felt like it just might generate a little bit of traffic, push it towards some of the videos, and promote an additional way to promote if someone like yourself is kind enough to take the time to hang out with us and crush some beers, I'm like, and this is a fantastic conversation. I want more people to hear it, and that's an additional way because the social media algorithms aren't always working in our favor. So there's, I think email marketing is. I'm glad. I hope this was valuable. Yes, and it's just not just to you, but to
I hope everyone out there is listening too. Like, the value of email marketing.
It's fun though. It kind of makes it sort of like it's hard, but at the same token, I also understand that it's hard to when you just head down working. All these factors working against you, bureaucracy, regulation, economics, fucking everybody's in food banks and like struggling. It's sort of like as a business, you're like, how do I sort of do this? And you might not always think of it. So that's kind of like the point of a lot of this.
These are things that could shift units.
And I think they do. And
excitement in January.
That's the other point. Exactly. So like, how do you create excitement in January? It's sort of like there's a lot of dry January content I'm seeing right now. A lot of different spots that saying, "Hey, we're doing this, and this to dry January focused events, whether it's products or events or whatever." There's just I think it's just ways to let people directly know. And it sounds like, and I think it's very clear from what you're saying that like you have a lot of dedicated people who really enjoy what you're doing, and I hope they're already on your mailing list. But I feel like that's just another way to just be like, you do it, and it might be like in their head on Monday, they're like, oh, I can't wait till Friday. I want to do something. Don't know what yet. And then Sarah emails from Red Tape, and you're like, oh, Red Tape's got this new, the Belgian triples back. Let's go. I'm out there, And it's more just like you can catch people at the right time. And it's, I don't know. I just think it's like gotta take everything right now, right? Whatever we can in all of this is, like you said, most businesses do not have billboard money. We got social media and we have email marketing, and we can make that work. So it's it's fascinating. How do you guys feel about a very brief bathroom break, and then we can come back?
Yes, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. All right, we'll be back, yo. Alrighty, we are back now.
And we're back.
Sarabeth, you were just telling us about your pup, and
we have an adorable brew pup. He is 7 months old. His name is Silly Goose.
What breed is Silly Goose?
He's a wire-haired pointing Griffon. So he's like a medium-sized wire-haired dog. He's very handsome.
Okay, that is gorgeous. Silly. Now, what do you call, if you're going to call him, what do you say?
I mean, it varies between Silly Goose and just Goose.
Okay.
SG? I never call him SG. I feel like people like who meet him, they're like, they want to be like SG, just like they would be like SB for me. But I feel like he's just a goose. And my 4-year-old would say, like, we call him Goose.
I like it. If the 4-year-old says that, the 4-year-old's in charge. Right.
Yeah.
And do they?
And is
those are fun.
And is the 4-year-old your youngest?
He is.
Okay, and how old's your oldest?
He just turned 7 last weekend.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you. We had his party here at the brewery. We're now offering our space for family birthday parties Sundays, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. for $250.
It's
shameless self-promotion.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm here for Silly Goose.
This is the space for that. Don't worry.
We're big dog fans.
Our 4-year-old is like the opinionated one. So if he's like very irritated by a dog, he'll say, Anana, he calls me Anana. Anana, I told you it was a bad idea to get a dog.
Wow. So he's like kind of sassy.
He's very sassy.
I respect it. If kids have the guts to do that, I think that's genuinely hilarious. I love it. I also find that dogs, like, I can respond because a dog we were saying off air, like Barrington, and we call him Bear, Barry, anything like that, and all sorts of variants, and he responds to all of them. I feel like they're pretty switched. I wasn't sure. Someone was like, "Oh, you can't call a dog 3-syllable name; he'll never get it." I'm like, not only does he get that, but he gets all of the other different ridiculous variations that inevitably.
Oh yeah.
Just don't call him late for dinner.
Oh, that kid, he is never late for dinner. Oh my, he's early.
You get the stink eye for that.
Thirsty little
kid.
It's
like you call their name and this like the perky ears. It's the cutest. Yeah.
It's the best.
Like,
honestly.
Of course I'm here.
I was like, what's going on? The dog's the best thing we ever did. Gosh, I know it's awesome. I like that you call him a brew dog. So his your dog's sorry, I don't want to say your dog. The dog has a name. Silly Goose is in the brewery a lot. People can come to the
He's
brewery
here
and see.
frequently, but anyone who has had a puppy before can relate. 7-month-old dogs are the worst. They're really annoying.
Tell me about it.
I mean, he still has his balls. So now for at least large breed dogs, they recommend waiting until 18 months to neuter them. And
We just did it.
Oh, how old is Barrington?
Barrington was almost 2.5 when we did. We did it in November, and he's born in May, so yeah, 2.5. And honestly, it's made him better. So apparently they get that. We did a lot. We cook his food. He eats organic chicken meat from he eats the same food we do. So we're very intense about his food and stuff. So my girlfriend is really intense. So a lot of research, and they were saying that you mentioned the larger breed dogs, and I think there is a difference because we got a Maltipoo, he's a little guy. So they were saying that like the longer you wait, almost like the better to let that sort of the testosterone kick in.
It has something to do with the growth plates for the big dogs, so it reduces risk of like ACL, MCL tears, and
to keep it on, to keep the Gotcha. And what's the recommendation for a big dog?
So you said 18 months.
I would stick to that. It's like I always didn't want to do it because I was like, I don't know, just leave him. It's fine. But then apparently it's like a cancer risk if they get rid of him. It's like a cancer thing if you keep him. And we weren't trying to breed him or nothing. So now I found that he has, he's like our little kid because we don't have a child, like unlike you guys. So it's the closest thing, and we take him everywhere. Drive into Florida in a couple of weeks, and we take him there. We've done it before, and like we take him to everywhere. So he sleeps with us, and now he used to always, like, before the balls were removed, he would get up on the bed at night and he would jump down within 5 minutes and then kind of come back up. But we haven't taught him how to get off things so that we can trap him if we need to. So he can get up, but he can't get down. So he'd come up on the bed and then he'll just stand up and we'll have to wake up and put him down. Now he just stays on the bed all night. He's way more like cuddlier, cuddlier, which I found was an interesting side effect. I didn't expect that. And he stopped, touch wood, he stopped the leg humping, which is good because that is fucking annoying. I hated that. Oh, it's annoying. So that's gone. So I don't know. It seems to be a net positive so far. He's no different. I was worried it would change his personality, but he's a real chill dude anyway, and it's made him kind of better. But I think if you did it too soon, you can miss out exactly what you said on those benefits. And maybe for a larger breed dog, it's probably even more important for that strength because of the way the bodies are built and stuff.
Yeah, nuts. But, like, he's a pain in the butt. Like, he reacts to some puppies, which isn't a lot of fun. So we have to be very aware, like, in off-leash parks and stuff. And
does he have? He got the puppy teeth?
They're gone, thank goodness. The baby shark teeth. Ooh.
Oh my god, that's the worst.
Many shoes were sacrificed.
We didn't have shoes, but we had. I had like basic puncture wounds in my hands.
Yeah, same. Like, I think I still have scars. I mean, my hands are a mess because I work in a brewery, so I think that's just kind of what happens. Keith's working hands is my favorite hand treatment. If anyone is out there looking for like the little green jar thing.
Yeah. My hands get get very dry and bloody in the winter.
You're in Ottawa. That's like the epicenter of dry hands.
Oh my god, it's terrible. I'm personally a Kiel's ultra or a Kyle's, I don't know how it's pronounced, ultra hand salve. Kind of guy like I need that stuff. I'll go through a tube of it like every single winter just to keep my hands from cracking and bleeding all winter, and I don't even have a dog.
The dog definitely makes it worse. Oh, you just think, I'm not much of a lotion guy, but
honestly, you'd probably prefer he get into your hands than your shoes, though, with the shoe collection that you've got.
That's right there. I would probably end the kid if he touched these things. So yeah, shoes would be a large problem. I'd rather he got a lot of toys. He can tear the toys to bits, and he's good. So it's
this past summer was the first time I bought a pair of Birkenstocks ever, and I felt like as a middle-aged mom, it was time for me to get a pair of Birkenstocks. And I tried them on, and I heard that like the cork ones get really smelly, and like I have 2 little boys. When I'm outside, and my feet like often get wet. And so I was like, okay, I'll try the plastic ones. And so I got a pair of plastic ones and they were fine, but I didn't love them. And so when the dog started chewing them, I was like, thank you. Thank you for confirming, like, I don't need these in my life.
They're gone.
Yeah.
It's over. The dog, dogs are so funny. Guys, they're great. They're very cool. It's like, and I like the concept of a brewery dog to the people could potentially get. I mean, obviously once he's past the crazy stage, because that was the other thing. I was like, this is never ending. What is going to happen? And people like, just breathe. It's going to happen. It's okay. It's going to be over. And eventually you get past it. You've had dogs before, you've mentioned. So this is our first. So we were like clueless completely for every single part. We had to figure like ChatGPT, like Google. We had no idea about any of it. And then like, when is he going to stop biting me? This is crazy. And I kept letting him do it because it was so cute. And you just keep letting him bite. And you're like, probably should stop this. This is actually hurting me quite a lot, but it's so cute because he's so small. Like, all right, buddy, you bite away. Like, yeah. But it's like, and once it goes away, and it's like, it's I don't know. It's very cool. And getting to when there's like there's always like a brewery dog or like a what do they call them? Like a barn cat. Okay, yeah, like the brewery barn cat.
Oh, brewery cat.
Like,
yeah.
Like Troy at Badlands has one that's like just.
We looked at adopting one because the SPCA has a program, so it's like working cats, and so they're cats that aren't necessarily adoptable. Like they're not very social, but they're really great for spaces like this. And so we looked into it. And they're like always looking for breweries that have like indoor space where these cats can live, because so often there'll be like more outdoor situations. But my problem is my mom really hates cats, and I'm going to share this because it's so hilarious. And I'm like 2 beers in, but my mom, she'll walk into a house that has cats, and my husband Sean knows this too, and she makes this sound, and I don't know if I can repeat it right now because I've been sick. But let me see. Okay, she'll walk into a house and she'll see the cat, and she'll go.
Straight away, she could just feel it.
Without fail, she's like, I have to leave. I have to leave.
Is it like a allergic thing, or she just hates them?
She like the dander. She can like feel it in her throat or something, and like the cat sense that like she doesn't like them, and they'll do that figure 8 around her legs, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
So it's probably better to not have a brewery cat then, just for her sake.
No, because she would never come to the brewery, and
Understood.
Yeah,
you want her there. That's important.
My mom is part of our lives. Like she helps us out with the boys all the time. I can't imagine her being like in her own space.
How do you spell that for the episode? Is that AEUGG?
I think they're missing some R's or some CH's. Yeah. I'm not sure.
In any case, it's in all caps. It probably has like some asterisks and exclamation points in it.
Yeah. Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. I guess the brewery cats would be killing the rodents and stuff is probably the intention. Is that kind of where they're coming from? Gotcha.
Yeah. Gotcha. I can think of a few that have them. Like I know Beyond the Pale has exactly as you described. It's a feral cat, so so one that's not really adoptable, but can live comfortably in the brewery and just keeps mice and shit out of there.
It's just like what do? You just like leave food out for it or something?
No, I don't you don't
even need to. You don't even need to. It seems like they can just be comfortable in the environment there, and just by keeping rodents out, they can keep themselves sustained. Probably just leave some water out for them, but but they can get their they can get their.
Some of them become really friendly. Like Muddy York had one, and like he became like a fan favorite. That was the first cat that my kids ever met. And they were like, "Can we get a cat?" I was like, "No."
Grandma's mother.
Yeah, not if you want Grandma to come around again.
Oh, that is so good. That is fascinating. I never actually thought about the realities. I was just like, "Oh, this is funny. A cat's hanging out. Sure, cool." Like
BAOS has them too, I think.
Yes,
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
So it's not if you want it. Is it Ananatsiak? Is that it?
Ananatsiak, yeah.
And that's okay.
Have you been reading my books?
I have actually, because I have. Please don't change my diaper for my son, and I bought Benny the Bananasaurus Rex for my friend who has a 3-year-old.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's actually a fantastic segue. Let's talk about that side. So you mentioned even at the beginning about your publisher. So yeah, tell us about the book side of your world.
So I am an award-winning children's author.
Let's have a look.
And my books are published by Inhabit Media, which is an Inuit-owned publishing house.
Okay.
Benny the Bananosaurus Rex won the Blue Spruce Award this year, which is a very big deal because it's part of a group of 10 books that kids across Canada read and they vote. And so kids voted and they chose Benny the Bananosaurus Rex. And so that's why it's award winning. And I think that's extra because like kids are very honest in their opinions of like what they love. My third book, Sea Snooze, came out this past summer, and I just submitted the first round of edits for my fourth book called tentatively Strawberry Saturdays, coming out in spring 2026.
That is gangster. I'm Googled it right now. You got like CBC stuff here. And even it's translated into, what's the language?
Inuktitut.
Okay.
So I'm Inuit. Well, I'm half Inuit. My mom is from Nunavut. And so Inhabit Media, where like possible, they translate their English first books into Inuktitut. So Please Don't Change My Diaper and Sea Snooze are both available in Inuktitut. Benny the Bananosaurus Rex is available in French, which is also very exciting because I speak French. Sean is originally from Quebec, so our kids attend French school here in Toronto, which is like, it's not French immersion, it's like full French. Like today I had a call about my strong-willed 4-year-old with his teacher in French, which is like an adventure in itself. You know, it really tests your language skills.
That's amazing. That is so cool. Like just seeing, I definitely highly people like Sarabeth Holden. You could just put Sarabeth Holden books, and they all came up immediately. You can buy them on Amazon. It looks like
you Indigo. Buy them anywhere you buy books. You can like go to your favorite local bookseller and be like, "Hey, can you order Sarabeth's books?"
Yeah, and they'll bring it in. I mean, that's amazing. And what are they? I mean, basically on what Nate was saying, just to be abundantly clear for people. So there's 3 books, the 4th coming soon. Are they all aimed at different age groups, or they're
all like young readers? So you know, my kids are 7 and almost 5, so you can imagine that age and younger. Though what I've learned is that it doesn't matter what age their target is. If poop is involved, like the 7 to 9 set is gonna love a book about poop. So Please Don't Change My Diaper is very popular amongst 7 to 9-year-olds. Like they demand that I read it over and over again whenever I do school visits. It's like, bah! And they like lose it. It's hilarious.
That's amazing.
And I've been reading that to my son like since he was 1. And like now it's the kind of thing where like he'll go and ask for it because he thinks it's
adorable. Did you experience the Please Don't Change My Diaper phase?
Oh,
or did you escape that?
Yes, like we went through a long phase of it, and he and he even still goes through it every now and then. Like potty training is in our very very recent future. So we're definitely like going in and out of the Please Don't Change My Diaper phases all over the place.
That's so cool.
So all of my books have been inspired by my kids. Benny the Bananosaurus Rex is about a kid with a really big imagination, and he eats so many bananas that he turns into one.
Okay.
And then Sea Snooze, it's a bedtime story, and my kids have fought sleep since the day that they were born, except for those 4 glorious months where we had a snoo for the second one, and he slept. But after that, he was like, "I missed the snoo."
What's that?
It's this like high-tech bassinet, and so retail is like
them.
$2,000. No, it doesn't just rock them.
Oh my god!
You put them in a straitjacket, which attaches them to this bassinet, and then it gently like moves them in I don't know what kind of ways, and it also plays like white noise. And so if they start to stir, then it'll move in different ways and it'll make different sounds. And it'll do that for like 4 minutes unless they get really fussy. And then it'll send you a notification and be like, you need to check on your baby.
That's wild.
So I had heard about this thing. I bought it secondhand and then I sold it secondhand. So it was entirely worth like the investment for like 4 months of sleep.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to get? Do they grow out of it? Like that's why you have to get rid of it. Like it's not, gotcha. So it's like a particular period of the.
It's like the first. For me, it was 4 months. I think that it can last longer. But despite being 5'3", I birthed giant children who are like 99th percentile, and so they were out of there very quickly.
Understood, because they get too big for it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fat. I'm learning a lot tonight, guys. This is awesome.
So Sea Snooze, it's all about like kind of Arctic wildlife. So you learn about a lot of Arctic animals beyond, polar bears and things that you always hear about. And it's like a bedtime story. So I made it up one night when my younger son was 2 and he fell asleep in record time and he's sleeping on my arm. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to write that down. And of course I didn't have my phone there. I didn't want to move in case I were to wake him up. And I just stared at the ceiling, repeating it. I'm like, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And
that is so cool. I mean, it almost feels like random, but in the coolest way, like brewery owner and award-winning children's author, with the 4th book coming soon. I mean, that's like that's super fun. I mean, does that sort of keep your life pretty interesting and balanced, being that you got family, one business,
interesting, yes. Balanced, no. It's chaos.
I guess chaos is probably, you're right. Is it chaos because of what's causing the chaos? Is it all three, or is it?
I think it's being a parent of young children who are like in the early years of elementary school. I think anyone who has kids at this age can feel the chaos, no matter what career you're in.
Gotcha.
But having a brewery during uncertain times where things are constantly changing, and working on books and trying to keep up. I'm really bad at my emails. One of my like New Year's resolutions is to like respond to 10 emails a day, because I don't, and I really need to.
I like that. I respect that. That's a good one. I mean, email is necessary evil, I guess, at this point, isn't it? Like it can be pretty annoying, but it's arguably the most efficient way to communicate with people, at least to organize stuff. Like,
yeah,
even when we're doing all the pods, as you saw, we're communicating via email mostly. DMs are cool, but then things can get lost, whereas like email is kind of like in a bit more of a thread. It's a little easier because DMs you start yapping, whereas email is kind of like
and especially
business.
if there's a lot of information to convey, like that can get a bit long for DMs.
I also think with emails, like, I feel like there's pressure, like, from the perfectionist side. Like, I need to make sure that it's perfect before I send it. And I think I need to let that go.
No, you need to let that go for sure. Don't even sweat it. Like, I tried, my battery just died, but I try and avoid responding from my phone for the most part. But then sometimes I'm like, if it's just urgent, who cares if the email signature's not there? Like, I'll still try to, write in proper sentences and have my grammar decent enough. But like, I feel like it's like, if it's a real quick response and it's something that's that way, that like, it's just, I need to get this answer out now, because by the time I sit at the computer, it might be another hour and I don't want to wait. Like, who cares? Like, I feel like don't take it so serious. Do you know what it is though? If you're being perfectionist about it, and I totally understand, and I feel like I'm a bit OCD, and I know Nate's emails are always like very thoughtful as well. And I know he takes time, and I take a bit of time, and I reread everything. And most people just send stuff, and there's wrong links and spelling mistakes and all this crazy shit. Just read it one more time, goddammit. But it's just like, don't take it so serious, because it's just quick communication. It's just like, I think of it as like a DM with a little bit easier tracking. It's probably a better way to look at it. And it's just, yeah. And I try to, it's almost like he's going to carve out some time every day to do it. So I respect it, but I feel like, I bet you if you're saying that, there's a lot of other people out there who feel that same pressure.
Yeah.
And I know the other thing as well that I feel like, when particularly us communicating with people like yourself, like you own breweries, like my job and Nate's job is sitting there on a goddamn computer doing shit. You guys are using your hands doing stuff, serving at a counter, make at the back, carrying things, so you're not always on this. When you're on the computer, it's kind of a bit more of a directed energy where you just like got to go in and do it.
Days where I get 5 hours sitting at my computer are magical.
Right. And they're probably not the most common, I guess. No, exactly. So there's always like an expectation, even from our side. I'm like, I know that people have to have time to do this because there's so many other things that are distract them away from just sitting down and tapping away. So it's, you're right. Don't overthink it. It's not that serious. I just feel like people don't judge it either. Like, if you just the only thing I would say is just, if you got Grammarly, it's pretty sweet. Like, because the free version is pretty cool. It fixes some mistakes and stuff. Otherwise, reread it one time. Even if I'm just doing something really simple, I'll always reread it. And I find that a lot of people don't proofread. and that'll just erase a lot of mistakes. And because if you have a mistake, then it's going to require more communication, and then that's going to mean more emails, and they're more fucking around, and it's just this whole thing. But if you just read it one time, you can avoid a lot of headaches. That's not aimed at you, Sarah. That is aimed at everybody listening. So please read.
Sean and I are really big fans of the Tony Kornheiser show, which is like a sports podcast, but Grammarly is often a sponsor, and I'm sure you can use the code Tony K and get the paid version of Grammarly.
They probably get a good deal because they definitely try and sell you on that. Man, we should get Grammarly sponsorship here. It's pretty handy. It's pretty handy.
So responding to 10 emails a day and giving up takeaway coffee, I got myself like a new travel mug. Okay. So I'm only making coffee at home are my New Year's resolutions. Do you guys have any New Year's resolutions?
I don't do resolutions. I just I know I feel like I'm at the point where I'm like everything's moving the direction that it should. Do you know what the only thing with the takeaway coffee? That's one of my small life fun things. God, I'm a big coffee guy. I know Nate's a big coffee guy. It sounds like you are too. I don't know. I love supporting the cafe. It's not you get it 3 times a week or something, but I got a shit ton of beans as well here. So I try balance it. I don't try and do it, but yeah, I don't really do resolutions. It's just keep going. All I could say, I meditate every day. So I'm always
nice.
when they visualizations for manifestation, mostly abundance and things like that. And sometimes they do ones where you have to picture your future self and success wherever you want to be at. And they say, hey, ask them for advice, just keep going. I just think it's just keep going and just keep doing the stuff. So I'm just I don't really feel I already know the direction, and maybe a few years ago it would have been a different answer, but right now I was I'm not changing anything. It's just keep going, keep working out. If I identify as a fit person, what do fit people do? You work out. I drink a lot of beer. That's not helpful, but try and counteract that a bit more with eating a bit better. Eating a lot better and working out, stuff like that. So it's more just keep going in that direction as opposed to those pressures. Because the problem I feel with resolutions is sometimes they're very easy to break and it's harder to make them a habit. I think what's the rule? Isn't it 21 days to make a habit?
I've heard many things 40 days, 30 days.
Yeah, there's lots of theories on
different
that.
ones, right?
Yeah.
So it's more just keep it. I don't know. I worked out forever in Australia, and I did it when I came here, and then I just stopped during COVID and whatever happened. And I was and even just from August, basically almost 5 days a week since August, I just started doing it. I got Apple Fitness Plus because it connects to the watch and the thing. And I was yeah, you can see the calories. You can just do it. I'm just whatever, kickboxing, which is kind of easy, and these little strength things, boom, boom, boom. It's pretty sweet. So just keeping up things.
Yeah.
I like that. What do you got, Nate?
I'm also not not big on specific resolutions, but there are specific things that I'm working on right now, which just happened to coincide with with the turning over of the year. My mental health has been has been a bit of a struggle recently, and meditation was something that I got into to deal with insomnia, and and after kind of getting into a regular groove and dealing with that a little bit, I kind of fell off the wagon of doing it every day. So in kind of trying to get my mental health back on track, I'm trying to get back into a regular habit of that. And the problem that I need to break is that I was wanting to do 20 minutes every day, and 20 minutes seems like a lot to carve out in one chunk. So I'm working on telling myself okay, if you can even do 20 minutes when when I can carve out for it is great. But if I can't carve out 20 minutes, if I can do 5,
totally fine,
one day, that's enough. And I need I'm working on telling myself that 5 minutes is enough. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes every time.
Good for you. What do you use? What's the do you use an app?
Yes, I use an app called Down Dog.
Okay.
It also has yoga exercises and breathing exercises and a whole bunch of other stuff, but I use it primarily for meditation.
Gotcha. Does it have a streak function to it?
No, and I think that's for the best.
Doesn't work for you?
That's more of a deterrent for me than actually something that works, because it feels like if I'm not going to catch the streak, then kind of what's the point? So I try to avoid that. It actually works better for me if I just am able to kind of tell myself that 5 minutes is okay if I can't do 20.
Love that. That's good. That's good to know about yourself, though. Like, if that works, like for me and Tiff, that works. That like streak function. I got mad streaks. Duolingo. I'm just doing Spanish for the fuck of it. Why not? I send my mother-in-law is like Jamaican, and they send these like hilarious like morning greetings every day in WhatsApp. So I just find it, because they're so poorly designed and it's so ridiculous and they're very funny. So like I Google them every day. I was like, send me one every day. I want to be a part of it. And then I just go Google one, and it's Tuesday morning greetings, and I send her the most ridiculous one I can find. I've been doing that for like a year and a half or something. So like that streak, like the meditation streak, I'm on like nearly 1,800 days in a row of meditation.
What do you use?
Insight Timer, it's called. I believe it's the biggest meditation. It's totally free, and it's like you can do. I do what I do, Nate, as well. Let's say if I'm traveling, if I'm at home, my like anywhere between 15 minutes or something. But if I'm traveling, there's ones that are 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you can just put that on. The streak helps me not mess around and stick to it. And the gamification of that happened to work for me, and it worked because I did it long before my partner did. And then she did one a couple of years ago. It was like a January challenge. She did it, and she's never stopped since doing a January challenge, like 30 days, 31 days. And that one's pretty sweet because they got everything as far as like, it's not like a yoga one or anything. So we use the Fitness Plus app for Apple for the different exercises. They got all different things. That's not so. Oh, and then we got a streak for the closing. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the Apple Watch has these ring things. You got exercise, standing, and move goals. Yep, you know the vibes. So like, I don't know. We started closing it in May.
Can we be fitness friends? Is this
we can. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, Nate, you got one too. You never added me. What the?
Right here.
Oh, I'm disgusted. Why? How do we add each other? Let's do it right now. God damn it.
I have no idea. Sharing. Invite a friend.
Yes.
Because we need to have numbers.
Do you know
we don't have each other's phone numbers.
Let's do it off air then.
Well, we'll do that off air.
We
can fix that.
We'll do that
unless
off
everyone wants my phone number. No, I'm just kidding.
Call us, guys. I think
add us on Apple Fitness Plus.
Oh, I wish they gave you like a username so you could share. That would that's another like a flaw in that they keep you. But yeah, it's all those little things. Like I think that's a really just even the fact that you brought that up, Sarah, is like so cool. Like, just what are you trying to do to make yourself better at this time? It doesn't matter how you do it. There's no right or wrong answer. And it's like, we've all got to try. Like the fact, Nate, that you know that doesn't work for you, I think is so valuable for you, because you know that if you go into something that's gamified, you're like, oh, this is going to piss me off. I'm not going to do it. So that's sick, because you know not to do that. And vice versa, we found that it did work for us. And then that streak, whilst it's annoying, I'm like, oh, I haven't done Duolingo today. It's 11:57. Like, shit, let's go. And you get it in, and they have a little streak.
Like, if that keeps you on it, that's perfect.
And it's not even for any reason otherwise that, like, it's almost like, what do you identify as? If I identify as a person who tries to better themselves all the time, then I got to make sure I work out, even if it's just small. And say, like, when I was sick over Christmas. So all I did was, with iOS, is the iOS 18 or the watch iOS, you can pause your days. So you pause your ring, so it didn't fuck up it didn't mess up your streak. So my streak maintained. It just took those days off when I was sick and couldn't do it. And then when I started moving again, I just reduced the goal. So the goal was so small that I could actually achieve it. And then I was able to continue that streak, because I don't want to break it down. I'm at like 270 something days. I think it was May. So before the summer. So I'm like, the winter's the hardest time because it's brick out, and I don't want to. It's a lot more difficult to try and do that. So, yeah,
one of my kids increased my move goal, and I was like, "Really?
Oh, rude."
That is
and I
rude.
swim 3 days a week, so those days it's no problem. But like on the other days, like remembering to set like an outdoor walk, for example. If I take my dog for a 3K walk, and recording that as a walk, otherwise it doesn't. It's just like, oh, you've walked 11,000 steps today, but you're nowhere near closing your activity ring.
Yeah.
Nothing makes me more annoyed than that. And you know what? This is so into the weeds, but the outdoor walk exercise often fails and doesn't pick it up. So say you do like you said, 3 kilometers walk, let's say that's 30 minutes. Like it might give you 7 minutes of exercise. So now what we do, and I don't like having to do this because I feel like it's gaming the system, but God damn it, I did the exercise. I put on other exercise and other counts, because if your outdoor walk is determined on swinging your arm so it moves, and if it and also I think heart rate. So if it's sort of like a nice temperate day and you're having it, like say if it's 20 degrees and you're having a casual walk and your heart rate's not increasing and maybe you're not swinging your arm enough, it might not count. If it's brick out and your whole body is bracing because it's minus 15, then maybe you'll get it because your heart rate's up. And maybe if it's 30 degrees out and you're walking, you'll get it because your heart rate's up or whatever. But then there's been so many times we've come back like, what? Like my girlfriend would get 30 minutes and I'd be like on 4 or something. Like this is bullshit. I'm just putting this on other right now. I'm just walking around the house. So like we've been using other a lot. I don't like doing it because it feels like cheating, but I feel like the watch cheats us. So you got to do what you got to do sometimes, you know.
But it's better than Garmin.
Yeah, Garmin is. What is Garmin? Is that like? Wasn't that the navigation thing, or is that just like
It started as like a navigation thing, but then they like went into like the fitness watch space.
Yeah.
And I had one and I found it like really frustrating, and Sean has one and he just like reactivated it a couple months ago. But it's so funny because there's like this meme out there that says like Garmin, like, you haven't finished enough, you haven't done enough. And Apple's like, you're doing great. Like their approach is like very positive versus negative reinforcement.
That's a fantastic observation though, because it's sort of like, what's going to resonate with you? Do you want to be yelled at or do you want to be encouraged?
Yeah. Do you want your watch saying like, what's going on, you lazy shit? Like, come on.
Yeah, you kind of don't want that. You're like, hey, you can do it. You only need 10 more minutes or something like that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a positive thing, and all of that I guess plays into mindset, and that's obviously something that is important in owning a business, in what you're doing, and sort of keeping yourself together. I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about like how important it is for your personal life to be together and as on point as possible, because that's the foundation through which you operate your business. So like, if you can, I know you're talking about chaos, and I kind of feel like no one's ever settled. I don't care how wealthy or successful or whatever you are. Nothing's like, hey, everything's just really easy and awesome right now. I don't think that's ever going to happen to anybody. But like, if you've got your stuff together as much as possible and your family's doing as best they can, and you're doing things every day to make yourself better, whether it's a resolution or whether it's a ongoing thing that you've sort of been doing, it's like a net positive, because then you maybe got more headspace available to think about cool things to do for your business and for your customer base, and for just to keep everything together. It's I thought it was like a cool thing, because I always see people who go and fuck up their personal life and like, I don't know, cheat on a partner or do something that's like obviously gonna blow up something. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? There's nothing worse than having a crazy personal life that's just gonna make things wild. Some people seem to thrive off that, but like, I can only imagine as a business, particularly if you're running a business like in this industry, it's probably more important than ever to just be as sort of trying to make things as optimized as possible for health, for family, for processes, and all that type of stuff. So I feel like that's kind of what I was trying to tie all that little tangent back into, like the realities of owning a business.
I think we have to take care of ourselves to take care of like all of the important things of our lives, right? So,
oh my God,
you know, everyone has those different priorities, and I feel like as parents, you know, priority number one is our kids, and doing the best that we can to create, like, we brought them into this world. This is our responsibility. Let's give them the best that we can, and then, you know, then comes our work and our personal lives, and you know. But if we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have the capacity to kind of make all of that work. I started journaling my decluttering because I struggle with decluttering, and I'm like, this has to get done. And I was like, I think one of my biggest challenges is if I'm decluttering and I put hours into it, at the end, I'm like, I've done nothing. I still have to make dinner. I still have to get these kids out for fresh air, blah, blah, blah. They missed out on this, yada, yada. But if I'm journaling it and I like write down what I've accomplished, then I feel a lot better about it, because it's like, okay, I've spent hours and hours doing this, and I didn't take my kids on a 2-hour hike, but this is organized, or this is clean, or this has been like taken out of the house, and there's just something to that.
That's so cool. I love that a lot. Yeah, it really is. I've heard a lot of people speak about the journaling thing. It's never something I've like proactively like dove into, but I've heard like Tim Ferriss, if you guys are familiar with him, a 4-hour work week dude. He's the reason we started our business, and like he always talked about journaling and how important that is, and just it's almost like extracting those thoughts and just putting it onto the page can just make you feel better, because it's almost like you see it and you're like, oh, I did do all this stuff, because I guess it's how human nature kind of beat yourself up a little bit. I never did enough.
Yeah.
That's
immediately forget.
You immediately forget, and you just always feel, you're like, oh shit, well, if I've got like these 10 dot points, I did all of this. Wow, I felt like I did nothing. That's actually pretty sweet. All right. And just immediately makes you feel better, and that gets you in a better headspace to be able to better attack the business. If you, once again, just to bring it back to that point, it's just more like, sure, it also helps your personal life, which is equally as important, because even if you feel like you're achieving, whether you're achieving in decluttering, whether you're achieving in your marketing or production or how happy your kids are, all of those things are equal wins in different ways. It just sort of enrich your life. So it's yeah, that's really cool to hear that. Actually, I think that's really dope. Can you, this is a very stupid question, can you can wear your Apple Watch in the pool when you're swimming? That's cool with that? Do you have to do that like the water eject thing?
It does it automatically. So like when you choose the workout for your swim, you can choose the length of your pool, and then it measures like how many laps you do, and it can actually like sense what stroke you're doing.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then at the end, when you have to like hold the crown down or whatever, and it'll like spit out the water, and then it like,
does it actually physically eject water? Like
the first time I did, I was like, "What's happening? What's happening?"
Did I break it? Have I got?
No, it was like literally spitting it out, and I was just shocked by the action. Like I wasn't expecting it to actually be.
Well, like the force of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, as much force as you can get out of this from
tiny little
this like inch square thing. But yeah, it's really cool.
Interesting. I always thought you couldn't, like, I'm like always paranoid about never getting it in water. I've never put it in water before. I've had it for about 4 years, I think. So I've never really done it. But that's
I've only had mine for a year. So I don't know if it's like an older version.
I got I must have I got a Series 6, I think. So you must have like the 9 or 10. I think 10 was.
I think it's a 9.
A 9, yeah. I think 10 came out like in the fall.
Yeah. Now I have to look general about. Yeah, it's a 9.
It's a 9. Okay, so it'd be maybe it's a even more advanced one. Okay, that's sick.
Mine's a 7.
What's yours?
I have a feeling, I'm not sure ours could ours are safe for like for in the pool, but
I'm sure if you were to like click on the workout thing, if it gave you the option for pool or not, right? Like it wouldn't give you the option for pool if it could handle the pool.
I'm scrolling right now to see if there is a swimming one. Pool swim.
Oh, there you go. All right.
And then open water swim. Shit. All right.
Oh, a friend of mine just got Shox headphones. Have you heard of these?
I have not. What are they?
No.
They're like the colloquial so they're not earbuds like this. They like hook over your ears and then they wrap around. And so it like, I don't know what it, like colloquial or whatever. So it's a vibration as opposed to your earbuds.
Oh, okay.
And so you can use them in the pool.
Okay, and does it tie into the watch? Can you like play music or whatever? So you like.
No, it's like the oldest technology possible, where you actually have to remember in the aughts when we used to have to move music from our computer to our MP3 player?
I do indeed.
It's that.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's pretty sweet, because you can put it on there even if it's like limited. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, she loves it. She says it's game changer. So now I'm like super jelly every time we get in the pool. She comes out and she's like, "You have to get these." I'm like, ah!
That was almost your mum's level. Your mum's in the cat.
Yeah.
It's the theme of the night. Maybe this is the name of the episode.
I kind of feel like you mentioned resolutions. I think my resolution is to see your mother make that sound. I want
Yeah.
I need to hear that. I need to hear it live and direct. Maybe we'll get you to sample it and we'll put it in.
I'll be like, okay, Mom, we have to go to this person's house because they have a cat, and these guys from this podcast should be like, the guys from the what now?
They're gonna put this on the internet. It's amazing. Sarah, this is awesome. This has been so good. Was there anything else we want to touch on before we bring this bad boy home? We got a nice solid 2.5 hours. This is great.
Yeah.
This is a solid 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like to
drink more beer.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Meditate, work out, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. It's a hard world out there, friends. Do the best we can.
Solid advice. I couldn't agree more. It's I think it was cool because I don't know if we've ever talked about any of those topics that we just did for the last 30 minutes on the pod.
Certainly not at this length.
Not at this length, but like
I like how Nate has like created some ambiance.
Yeah, I know you got a little.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened here after I changed my camera battery this last time. The lighting got real dim, and I'm not sure what's going on with it. But
that's kind of sexy, bro. I feel it. No, honestly, Sarabeth, this is fantastic. It's been really fantastic talking with you. It's been really cool hearing about what you guys are doing, your unique approach to craft beer, the way that you're engaging the community in your area, the way that you are, the unique approach as far as the bespoke beers and then bringing them into the tap room and then converting people that way and just being like a place it's like a really like a home base for families and that people can feel super welcome. And I just think it's awesome. I just love the story as well behind the logo and the name. And this beer was like, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't typically drink the same beer back to back. I just drank 4 of these Birdie Pilsners, and this was fantastic. As far as like great. As far as like, the styles to drink back to back, it was the one.
It was a thirst quencher. Like that was the kind of thing like my glass just kept getting drained. I'm like, I need another one.
Yep. Yeah, it was fantastic and it was very cool, and I appreciate your just openness and honesty about everything and just the way that you approach it. It's very cool, and I feel like I'm super excited. I imagine Nate is too to get down and actually see the place in person. So
absolutely,
thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was great to be on here.
It's very cool.
This has really been a genuine pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing the story with us.
Love it.
Let's get together in person soon.
I think we definitely need to.
We have to.
Stick around afterwards and we'll wrap up off air just to say goodbye and everything. But the final thing, where can everybody find Red Tape online and in person?
redtapebrewery.com. If you just want to shop, go straight to shop.redtapebrewery.com. And our physical address is 159 Main Street, and that's in Toronto. Take the GO train, get off at Danforth GO, come on in. Just come, drink beer. We'll be here.
God damn right you will be. I love it. Sarabeth, thank you again for your time. Stick around. We'll chat in a sec. Folks, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell, Nathaniel.
Dang.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast, at Nathan Does Beer. Make sure to check out Red Tape. Give us 5 stars for Sarabeth, specifically for her Apple Watch in the pool. I think that's the most important thing for the pop bites. I feel like that's definitely necessary on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And guys, we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.